Live from the North Park Lounge, Richland, and the Hilltop Event Center. Good Sunday morning, Steeler Nation. John Phillips here. It is Steel City Sunday, live for the next 4 hours, give or take, as we get you prepared for Steelers at Ravens. Can I hype this up anymore, Bill? Can it be hyped up anymore as a game that I guess features teams that well, if they win, the fan bases probably aren't going to be satisfied. If they lose, they'll probably be a little bit happier.
Right. No, I mean, this is Steelers-Ravens, so you need no intro, right? I mean,
it is Steelers-Ravens.
Yeah.
No question. Both of these teams tied for first. The Ravens, by virtue of tiebreakers right now, ahead of the Steelers. Okay, I think the Steelers are 8th in the playoff chase. I didn't actually look that up this morning, and something that I should have probably done. But in the midst of
I think you're right. I think they are
getting prepared for this morning, as I take a look at the wild card picture, yes, the Steelers are currently sitting in the 8th spot, ahead of Kansas City, who is also 6-6, one behind the Texans, who are 7-5. They have a big game today. We'll go over the schedule in just a few minutes with you. But look. It's been a crazy week on social media, on just the news coming off the aftermath of that second half that was just a disaster against the Bills in a 26-7 loss that really, really has hurt this team and sent Mike Tomlin into what is easily the darkest days of his career in 19 years here. Mike Tomlin is under fire now from everywhere. Ex-players, the fan base, right? Ownership. There was a story yesterday from Adam Schefter. Did you see that by any chance?
Yes, I did see it.
Okay, so we'll get into that as well. Mike Ostie is going to be joining us here in just a little bit. We're going to go over our schedule. We've got a lot of guests lined up. Going to be a good show for you. We are guest heavy here. I'm not the expert. They are. We like to bring people on. I could shed my 2 cents, Bill as well. But we are here to bring you a lot of guests, and I do want to go over the guest schedule with you this morning because before I start getting into the ranting and raving about, the week that was in Steelerland, I think it's relevant to at least get to everybody's time frame here this morning. On the show, the first 15 minutes will be Bill and I just kind of commiserating about this, that, and the other. And then at 9:15, it's mic'd up with Mike Ostie, managing editor of West Virginia Sports Now, part of the Pittsburgh Sports Now family of websites. Mike, of course, also a West Virginia grad. He also writes for Pittsburgh Sports Now. He covers the Steelers for them. And he's, of course, a national writer for Yardbarker, local guy, good young man, great, breaks news. If you're not following him on X, you should go check him out. Mike's going to join us for a period of time. At 9:45, we hope to have Anthony Halkias of SteelerNation.com. He's a little under the weather. We haven't had Anthony in a few weeks, been traveling and a few other things. We hope to have him at 9:45 this morning. Maybe we can bump him a little bit later if we need to. At 10 o'clock, Paul Zeiss of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Paul actually had a pretty interesting article this week in the PG. I do write for the Trib. I have the Trib's newspaper here as well, just in case my editor is watching, Mr. Bill Hartlip. I want him to know I've got the Trib newspaper also. But Paul, of course, comes on for about an hour each pregame show. He'll be joining us in the 10 o'clock hour. He talked about a win for either club prolonging a cycle of delusion, something that I actually referenced in part Monday on our Facebook page. If you haven't checked out, good morning, David, on Facebook. Thank you very much. Good to see you and hear from you, sir. I talked about this. I think the best thing for the Steelers is for them to just lose out. And this will tie into the Adam Schefter story that we'll talk a little bit more about. I want to get into that with Paul. We'll have Paul for just about the entire 10 o'clock hour. At 10:30, it'll be Haley's Huddle. Todd Haley, the former offensive coordinator of the Steelers, the Browns, the Arizona Cardinals, head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs for a period of time, Upper St. Clair graduate, and native to Western PA. Todd's going to join us for his weekly segment for 15 minutes. We'll wrap up hour 2 and move into hour 3 with our NFL insider, Zig Fracassi, who, of course, has been for the last 23 years working for SiriusXM's NFL radio. He'll join us at 11 o'clock. Excited to have Sia Nejad joining us from CBS Sportsline. He's going to join us for our Consigs Pick segment at 11:15. He does a bunch of different shows for CBS Sportsline, a fantasy football show. He's involved with betting against the spread. Sia Najad coming on at 11:15. At 11:30, excited about this. Ed Bouchette, longtime Steelers beat writer for the Post-Gazette. Ed's going to join us at 11:30. We'll take Ed for a little ride down memory lane. I used to work with Ed over on Ardmore Boulevard at WTAE AM 1250 many years ago. It's nice to reconnect with Ed. We'll have him on the show at 11:30 this morning. That'll take us into the 12 o'clock hour when we get Jerry DePaula on. Jerry will spend some time with us. Maybe we'll bump him in with Ed at the very end. Who knows? We'll have Jerry on for a period of time. We got Bill's breakdown, and then we'll wrap up the show somewhere around 12:30, 12:40 p.m. so that you have time to get ready for Steelers and Ravens at 1 o'clock from M&T Bank Stadium. Of course, our post-game show is going to be at a little after 4 o'clock, 4:05, 4:10 p.m. We'll have John Fedko. We'll have Jerry DePaula on. We should be able to get the post-game presser from Mike Tomlin as well. We've been grabbing that lately, which has been good for us. We like having that on the post-game as well. And lots of conversations. You are welcome to chime in. If you're watching us on X, if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, all you have to do is get into the chat. Just leave us a message. It pops right into our screen. We'll say hi and we'll talk with you. We'll take questions as well. So you're welcome to do that. I don't have to give a phone number. I'm so used to giving phone numbers over my career. 412-928-9370. Call us now. No phone number here. But we like what we're building. We had over 4,000 people watching us last week just on X alone, which is, it varies week to week. But since the Thursday night game against Cincinnati, we've had some pretty strong outings on X, and our other social media platforms are growing. We're playing the long game here. We're also adding more shows. We'll talk a little bit about a new show that's coming to our platform this week on Monday and Tuesday in a few moments. But, Bill, like 4,000 people. It was nice to see. And we don't spend any money on advertising, folks. I want to spend money on advertising, but X is complicated, and I can't figure out Facebook. So until I can get a social media manager, we're just relying on people like you. Like and subscribe wherever you are on all the social media sites. You can find us on X, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Steel City Sunday. At Steel City Sunday. But a nice group of people watching us last week. I know we're just getting our feet wet here in this space, but I'm pretty certain by year 2, by year 3, we should be, I think, a regular occurrence in your calendar. And as we add more shows and programming, hopefully you'll find us to be a source for you to come in and hang out and talk a little bit about sports. Okay, let's see what we got here. Text messages are blowing up for me as well. Okay, somebody's sending me some information that I need for my day job. I like that. I like when people do what I ask of them. All right, back to the Steelers. Let's talk about this Adam Schefter story, and I'll bring Billy in here for a few minutes with me on this one as well. Adam Schefter yesterday basically writing a story for ESPN.com talking about Mike Tomlin and his current contract. It has him through 2027, but the 2027 is an option year, and that is going to be decided this spring. I think March is the deadline, is what the Steelers, or at least what the article, the gist of the article stated, and that, the team is going to put a full body of work together and look at everything when it comes to Mike Tomlin. And I said this a few years ago when he was in that lame duck space of 23, 24, coming into a year where he needed a contract extension, and they gave it to him. They gave it to him in 2024 coming into training camp. Remember that happening. There was speculation heading into 24 as to how that was all going to go down, but there were insiders basically saying it'll be handled by the time they get to Latrobe, and sure enough, it was. He was granted an extension into 2027, but they have a caveat in there, Bill, that basically allows the Steelers an out potentially, and if that is to happen, and again, we don't know what's going to happen over these next 5 games, right? 5 games, including today, right? They've got the Dolphins on deck for Monday night. After that, it's Cleveland or Detroit, and then it's flipped the other way around. I believe it's Detroit, then Cleveland, then
Mhm.
we finish with Baltimore. Okay, Steelers' last 5 games. If they end up under 500, if they end up not in the playoffs, I think things will escalate quickly in the offseason towards ownership saying, we're not going to renew you. Let's figure out a plan. How do we figure out a way for you to continue to keep coaching if that's what you want? Everybody's talking about Tomlin to the New York Giants with Jackson Dart. And let's just be honest. Tomlin's success with the Steelers came in the early portion of his career when he was handed a Super Bowl caliber roster. He won a Super Bowl with 12 of the members that won in 2005. Those members were part of the Super Bowl team in 2010 that lost to Green Bay, that beat Arizona 2 years prior. I'm not saying he's getting a Super Bowl caliber roster in the New York Giants. They're an awful football team, but he has a young, dynamic quarterback that's showing potential. What do you think about all of it?
The biggest thing I see with Jackson Dart is he's in concussion protocol every other week. I mean, the guy takes unnecessary hits. He just, I don't know. He wants to be a tough guy. I don't know. To me, a tough guy plays 17 games, John. That's what I look at as a tough guy. No, listen. I mean, we know there's no firing planned with Tomlin, right?
Right.
Firing's not in the Steelers' plans. We've said that before. We talked about that on our Wednesday show with Ray Fittipaldo. Um, it's going to be a mutual parting of ways. Now, with this Schefter story, it kind of maybe the cards are in the Steelers' hand a little bit more than what for Tomlin. I mean, they may push depending, and like you said, depending on how this season goes, they may push to get him out, so to speak. But
They haven't fired a head coach since the 40s, I think I read.
yeah, it's like
It's
Jock Sutherland.
Chuck Sutherland, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that they have not fired a head
Right.
coach in 85 years almost.
Yeah. See, the Jock Sutherland, there was a Buddy Parker, I think was
One of the two.
One of those guys. Yeah.
It's a stunning real. Whoever wrote that and looked into that, kudos on them. I saw it in glancing as I was looking online. And when we get Mike on board, just let me know. We'll bring him on for the chat as well. But the simple fact of the matter is that these traditions that Art is clinging to are hindering his franchise.
Yeah.
They just are. And I'm not saying that Tomlin hasn't earned the ability to do what he does, but at some point in time, you have to step in as an owner and figure out, is this going to continue? I'm sure they talk daily, right? I'm sure they talk daily, but at this point right now, what is best for this franchise? And again, I've been chanting this for probably 8 years now, since the Jacksonville divisional loss at home, quite frankly, when I was writing for Behind the Steel Curtain. Tomlin has flaws. They are many, okay? They are many, and he is going to continue to show these flaws. He is not going to change. Coaches don't change, generally speaking, especially veteran coaches of the caliber of Mike Tomlin. And I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I'm just saying that I think his expiration date has long passed here.
Yeah. And like I said, it's going to be a mutual parting of ways. But there's ways to kind of force the hand, if you're an organization, there's ways to kind of make it so the guy's not going to want to come back. And it's going to have to come down to that. It's going to be Tomlin wanting to leave. And I think that right now, he may want another shot at elsewhere and a fresh start. And why wouldn't you? I mean, it's just kind of. I think it's run its course, John. I really do.
It most certainly has. If there was some sort of drastic change, bringing in a dynamic young offensive coordinator. They brought in Art Smith. Had
Yeah.
they kept Brian Flores,
Right.
and just
Yeah.
and Mike stepped back and said, "You run the defense.
Right.
Consult with me, but you run the defense."
He's not like that though. He kind of has to have his hand in and everything. It's interesting. On the way in, I was listening to, I forget his name, but he was a beat writer for the Ravens, and he was talking about Harbaugh, and Harbaugh's the exact opposite. He said Harbaugh's like, hey, you run the defense, I'll stay out of it. You run the offense, I'll stay out of it. I'll make the decision whether to go on fourth down or not. But he said the reason I know this is because when we have press conferences and we ask him anything about the ins and outs of defense or offense, he's clueless. He really doesn't know.
right.
Where I would say Tomlin's more defense is his baby, but it's just we said this before. We had a lot of comments. Oh, fire Terrell Austin, fire Terrell Austin. He's terrible. He's terrible. Yeah, I get it, but also, Tomlin is the guy that ultimately has the final say in that defense, and what calls they what plays they call, what defensive scheme they use. He's the guy that makes those final decisions. So, if you're going to fire Terrell Austin, well, you might want to also part ways with Tomlin.
Well, look, if Tomlin goes, the whole staff's going.
Correct.
Absolutely, the whole staff.
It'll be a fire sale.
It'll be, and that involves a lot of money too. Now I keep it in mind, and so, which is what makes the Schefter story so much more interesting, because if you're not picking up the option, right, now it's Armageddon, right? And I think the article, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think the article referenced something about March as being a deadline on that. Option pickup. I think it's got to be a quick move. I think and I'm not saying like within a day or two after the season's over. Who knows? They might run the table here. They could finish 11-6, or 10-7 and win the division and host a playoff game and maybe win a playoff game. Now you're talking about something similar, not quite similar to what Paul had mentioned, and certainly I had talked about on Monday in my article that you can find on our Facebook page at Steel City Sunday, is that you continue this cycle that you've been in. At least you break that 8-year drought of not winning a playoff game. Remember, Cowher only went 3 seasons in between playoff wins. Noel went 4. We're talking 8 and potentially 9 now with Tomlin, heading into what could be a dead season. Excellent. All right. With that said, I want to bring on one of my favorites, Mike. I have a lot of favorites. Mike Ostie is one of them. Managing editor of West Virginia Sports Now, part of the Pittsburgh Sports Now family of websites. Of course, he covers the Steelers for Pittsburgh Sports Now. National writer for Yard Barker, Sirius XM from time to time. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, guys. And I heard you're having the conversation that everybody else is having in Pittsburgh and around Steeler Nation this time of year.
Well, yeah, of course. It's been a crazy week. I mean, outside of the drama that unfolded on X and social media on some other topics, the fact of the matter is we're talking about the operations of football here. We're talking about Mike Tomlin and what the next 5 weeks, how they unfold, and then the Schefter story that we kind of dropped in the evening time, if memory serves me correctly from yesterday.
It was a little bit of a dump because you had college football championship games.
Yes.
It was almost like, this is here, this is news, but if he wanted to get maximum visibility, he probably would have waited till Sunday. It would have been a Sunday morning, 7 a.m. having your coffee type of dump. It was Saturday. I'm not going to accuse him of trying to throw it away, but it also opened with the non-news that I feel like he shouldn't even have to say that Tomlin's not going to get fired and it would have to be a mutual parting of ways.
Right.
And the problem with starting with that, as you know, and this includes myself and you and everybody else, nobody's going to read a report that has a lead that's, 50 words deep. So he started with that, and then the news and the nitty gritty is towards the end, and then you actually have to click and actually read the article. But it does talk about what you guys were talking about, how it's about the option. It's about early next season. Now, John, I hate to tell you, and I know that Steeler Nation would still want to move ahead with the change, and I would still advocate for it. However, if they run the table and win the division, they're not firing him anymore. They're not moving on anymore. They're not parting ways anymore.
Right.
They're not mutually moving on anymore.
Right.
None of this is happening anymore. He's going to be the coach next year. So this is weird to say for Steeler Nation, if you want to move ahead with a change, you need them to basically miss the playoffs or get blown out if they get in that first playoff game. If they somehow win a playoff game, or they run this table, or if they beat the Ravens today, they're certainly in position to still potentially win the division. If they do that, you're likely having Tomlin come back. That's the reality. I don't think they want to do this. I think if you ask the franchise, if you ask the Rooney family, they would prefer to continue on.
Sure.
They don't like change. They would prefer to continue on. They know in their hearts that if they continue on, they're going to at minimum be in this conversation of getting anywhere from 9 to 10 wins every year. They would rather do that than risk a fire sale, hiring a new staff, risking continuity, risking players wanting to leave. Cam Hayward may say that if Tomlin's out, I want to retire. Then you're going to have a hole there. You already have money invested there. Maybe he'll want to come back, but that could be drama. And then you're going to have a situation where there's a lot of work to do in the offseason. The offseason this past year where they added some to the defense was the most work they normally do. They almost take the offseasons off. It'll be a very, very magnified offseason. The national media will be talking about it. Stephen A. Smith will be yelling about it. They will be the Dallas Cowboys almost of the offseason. They don't want that. So if they can get away with not doing it by bringing him back and having it be a quick February, well, they bring him back again, let's stop talking about them, they would love it. So that's the weird thing for Steeler fans. You if you really want to change, and I do think his voice has been stale. I think the fans just want to change. I think what the Rooney family does not understand and Dan Rooney does not get, I think the Steeler fans are at this point now, we'll see, Billy, if you guys agree with this, that if you told them you make a change and next year is a 5-6 win season, but then maybe it picks up after that, or you don't make a change and next year is a 9 or 10 win season, but you don't make the playoffs or you lose right away again, I think fans would say, let's have a bad year. Let's make a change. Let's have a bad year. And then let's just get a new era in place, because eventually you have to have that growing pain to happen. But if you never do it, you never can have it happen and you never can move on.
Right, because a lot of fans remember that 6-10 season in 2003, and what happened? You got Ben Roethlisberger in 2004 as a
there you go. Yeah.
Here's the question I have, Mike.
Even Cowher's 500 season after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, that was people weren't happy with that year, but then you got Tomlin to come in, and then you got another run.
Yep. Here's a question I have, Mike. And if Schefter had mentioned it in the article, external versus internal noise. Now, if you ask me, I'm going to say that there's more noise coming from the external than the internal. What do you think?
There's definitely more. I'll say this: there's more noise coming from the external for sure, 100%. Yeah. There's more noise. I think that there's more noise coming from the external this year than ever before. And we talked about it last year and the year before, but here's a major difference from the external. If you've noticed, and this is not even, me trying to poke at anybody in the national media, this is just the case. They've even admitted this before. Rich Eisen's admitted this, that the national media loves Tomlin. He has a lot of close friends in the national media. Rich Eisen, again, is one of them. They admit they're literally friends. They golf, they hang out, they have a beer. I mean, they're biased in this topic. Mike Greenberg, they're friends with him. So in past years, you would have people in Pittsburgh kind of bring this up that, okay, it's been a while, the Andy Reid example, let's maybe make a change. They have a ceiling, and the national media, and some are still doing this, Kimberly Martin, and some are still doing this. But now some in the national media, even his friends are starting to say, Ryan Clark, who played with him and won a championship, are starting to say, we're friends. Mike, we love you. Maybe it's best to have a change even for you. They're saying that on national TV, like talking to him, it almost seems, Mike, maybe let's have a change here. We hadn't had that before. And then, so there's louder external noise than ever before. And then I do believe now, because of that, the Rooney family, they hear this. The Steelers hear this. And I think the internal pressure is getting louder because they're realizing the fans are getting really frustrated. They don't want those chants during games. So the internal pressure is louder than ever before as well. And maybe that would convince them to get in that meeting that we've both been saying for weeks of, Mike, There's probably a ceiling here. Maybe it'd be best for you to make a change. We're not going to ship you to the Titans or Siberia or anything like that. But where maybe would you want to go in a trade? Could we do that? It would help our franchise. If you don't want to do it that way, could we have an announcement that we have a mutual parting of ways, or we'll let you have the win here as a Super Bowl champion? You want to leave, we'll give it to you. You can have that in the press release, and then we'll move on from there. And maybe they would start that meeting. Whereas in past years, I will tell you from sources, they never even started that meeting. They never engaged that meeting. It was always, let's move on. We love you. You love me. This is 5 minutes long. Fans, shut up. This is different, I do believe.
Well, so hold on a second here. I just want to chime in here. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, according to Steeler Depot, this is about 45 minutes ago, Rappaport saying that if the Steelers beat the Ravens today, all of this is going away regarding Tomlin. So there's that. So here's Rappaport coming back over the top rope on Schefter, right?
Yeah, Macho Man,
right,
wearing the top rope elbow drop.
Wearing his robe and his glasses while he's doing it on top of that. Yeah. And I find that a little hard to believe, but I don't in some way, you know what I mean? Right, exactly. I find that a little hard to believe, considering they still have to play him again. They have they have to go to Detroit, right? They haven't won in Cleveland since Ben was here, and they might catch the Dolphins on a 6-game winning streak. Right, you know what I mean? Like, there's a gauntlet here that they're still facing. So this thing that Rappaport's saying, I don't buy into it one bit. Maybe it's just him throwing something out there because he's Ian Rappaport. I don't want to believe that per se, but if there was a convincing win today, maybe that becomes a little bit more true. But the big scenario here, and we'll continue.
The Ravens schedule's easier. The rest of
it is a little bit easier for sure. What I will say is that the best scenario, if you're looking for change, is for them to go sub 500 and not make the playoffs. That's
not
scenario.
Even to get in, right? Because the thing is, as much as we would all argue, even if they crawl in, we would all say, and I would say, and it would be right, that you took advantage of a very, very weak AFC North division, arguably the weakest it's been in 20 years. If you lose right away in the playoffs and you get blown out again, then you've proven that if we're talking college football playoff, the committee would say you don't even deserve to get in. They'd be the Duke of this thing. That's what it would be, the winner of the AFC North. So you're the Duke. They didn't even get in. You shouldn't really be in. And then you go ahead and get blown out. Let's still make a change. That's what we'd all be saying. The fans would be saying. The Roonies would say, the Manny Diaz, we won. We got a ring. We're going to move on. We deserve to be here. If you don't want to put us here, it's your fault, not ours. So they would I do believe they would power on with Tomlin. You'd be year 20. He would be defending himself maybe on the pivot again. They would go quiet. They would go from March to June, outside the draft, of course, and would not talk about this. They would only talk about the draft at that point, and they would power on. If they miss the playoffs, I think this is finally in play for a little bit of an offseason conversation. I do think it would drag a couple weeks. The family, they would not want any news out during Super Bowl week. They would respect all of that. It would be after that. So fans who would want an immediate rush on, say, Black Monday, I wouldn't be shocked if they even would let that linger past that. But nonetheless, there would be, I think, some type of meeting, some consideration. And I do think as well that Mike Tomlin's hearing the outside noise, annoyed by it more, and maybe he'd be more receptive if you give him a right move or a right scenario, like say he could get to the Giants or something like that. I think if it's a horrendous scenario, he's going to say, don't screw me over.
Yeah, so he's not going anywhere where it's not a good scenario.
Yeah, like we're seeing a lot of thoughts of grandeur out there, as if because Tomlin has a lot of say in this franchise. That's a whole another conversation, of course. But people that think, because I see a lot of defenders of, well, maybe it's more of the roster construction, maybe it's more of play calling, maybe it's more of this or that, maybe it's more QB. Do you think Tomlin does not have any say in the roster, even the quarterback position? I know for a fact Mike Tomlin wanted Kenny Pickett there. He was a bust. That's on Tomlin. Mike Tomlin wanted Aaron Rodgers there. Hot and cold, whether you want to argue whether it's worked out so far with his age. Maybe it's not. That's on Tomlin. So that's a lot on the defense is all Tomlin. The scheme of defense is all on Tomlin. Billy, you mentioned that he's very hands-on, that Terrell Austin has to go to him and say, this is the scheme. And Terrell Austin, I do believe, is calling the plays. I can corroborate colleagues who say that. Fans don't believe that, but he's calling the plays in game. But what I will agree with fans on is on, say, Wednesday or Thursday, Terrell Austin is saying, hey, Mike, here's the scheme. Here's what I am going to call. And then Tomlin says yes or no. And if he says yes, then Sunday it is Terrell Austin's show. But it is not all just Terrell Austin only from Tuesday on.
Right.
So all of that is going to be different. But the only thing I can agree with Rappaport, and I'm not going to accuse him of making something up here, of course, but the only thing I can agree with that is that if they beat the Ravens, then it's more like, I'll give you a legal term here. If they beat the Ravens, it's more likely than not that Tomlin comes back, because then they would have a game in hand and they could afford to even lose the other one because they would have split as long as they don't lose out. And if they win the division, he's coming back, even if they do it with 9 wins. And that is still very much in play. The Ravens could lose games too. If they lose to Baltimore today, I think there's a chance that someone else buys a billboard. You're going to hear chants at the next time they're back at Acrisure. You might even hear some Steelers fans in Baltimore. Like, it's going to be more than it's ever been, and you hope it doesn't go run down the muck that it did as we opened the show talking about.
I can tell you one person who isn't going to be buying that billboard, but I won't mention who it is exactly.
Well,
This portion of today's show brought to you by Arch Masonry and Restoration. Arch is hiring, folks. If you're a block mason, brick mason, if your company hires you as a concrete finisher or a laborer in construction and you are not busy, Arch is, and they are looking for people like you. If you have no experience, that's okay. You can learn on the job. They have advancement programs and classes that can jumpstart your career in the building trades. Call 412-564-5733 or visit archmasonryinc.com to learn more. We've got Mike Ostie, of course, joining us. He's on our pregame show every week. You can check him out at Yardbarker, West Virginia Sports Now, and, of course, on PittsburghSportsNow.com. Mike, let's get into this quarterback matchup. The one that hasn't happened, right? Lamar Jackson, who apparently has got some bad wheels.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers, who is just old.
That's really how to describe them, yes. Lamar
Basically,
Jackson's very banged up and kind of the body probably is older than he is age-wise because of how banged up he is.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what Aaron Rodgers can really give them. And what didn't happen in the loss of the Bills that we let in last week's show saying, okay, you got to get a running game to help out Aaron. If Aaron's going to be the QB again, you got to have the running game clicking. You got to have Jalen Warren. You got to have Gainwell. You got to have whoever. They got to run the ball. Well, that didn't go down in the Bills game. That didn't happen in the Bills game. Warren, 35 yards. Kenneth Gainwell, 20 yards. Caleb Johnson, 3. Rodgers actually had a little scramble there that gained nothing. They did absolutely nothing on the ground. The Steelers did nothing on the ground, and they also allowed the Bills to gain yards against them, obviously, defensively. If that's the recipe again against the Ravens, they're toast. They're dead in the water. And what's funny, maybe not funny for the Steelers, but kind of funny in general, the blueprint the Bills put out there, and it's not even necessarily a blueprint because it just was right to them. Like, the Steelers aren't going to stop these runs, and the Steelers can't run the football themselves on offense. The Ravens are almost a recipe for disaster because they would love to pound the rock on every single run play and just pound it every single time with Lamar and Derrick Henry. They would love to do that. And then they also would love a situation where their defense, who I think the underrated thing here of this season, their defense got a little better. Their defense early in the season was really, really bad. They've got a little bit better. So if they play well against the run, then I'll say this too. This is one of those backs against the wall that Tomlin would pull this out somehow, and it's a rivalry game, and you certainly can beat Baltimore, and you throw the records out the window. And if Rodgers doesn't make mistakes and they get some more on the ground and hit a big play or so, the defense got to be way better because all the money is spent. The defense has been the biggest problem this year. I've been writing and talking about it. But if those things improve a little bit, the Ravens are vulnerable. The Steelers could win. But there's no analysis of any intelligent mind or conventional wisdom for me to say that. If I'm just looking football to football and I throw the records out the window and I don't know what happened last year or last week or 20 years ago, and I just am implanted from another planet and look at these two teams and see, the film, how could I possibly pick the Steelers? That's kind of the situation here.
Which planet would it be if you were? By the way, that's what I want to know.
That's I don't
Just
know. Not Mars, not Mars.
Alpha
Maybe,
Centaurion 8 or something. You're
yeah,
like some rogue planet out there that we named.
another galaxy. Maybe there's life in another galaxy, if not in this one. I'd like to think maybe there's John Phillips and Mike Ossie talking about this somewhere else, another alternate universe somewhere. I like to think that, yeah.
Topic for another show in another platform, perhaps.
Yeah.
All right.
maybe. Yeah. I have the discussion about aliens actually on the sports talk show before.
Have you really? Okay,
it's been
that's
years, but I randomly threw it in there once. Yes.
All right, excellent. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has been moved up to the 53-man roster. The Steelers grabbed Adam Thielen off of waivers.
Yeah.
We're going to see these guys today.
Well, yeah, you had to do something. I think also part of this is they obviously didn't do really anything, certainly not wide receiver 2 at the trade deadline. They paid the money to DK. George Pickens, despite the recent game with the Cowboys, just teared it up, and that looks bad for you, even if we kind of know in media that he was a little bit of a malcontent and they had to do it. So you need that protection. DK Metcalf by himself cannot get it done. Double coverage is there. He's not Randy Moss. He's not going to get it done even at this age. They had to do something. You bring veteran presence in, that's doing something. Do I think those moves by themselves are going to have them make a run, win a playoff game, go ahead and win the AFC title, and just be these world beaters? No, but they had to do something. And you also wonder if either they found out that what they were doing was just not working, and I'm sure that's what they would say, or part of all this is to answer some of the noise that we're talking about, John, where they're sitting there saying, okay, this is an easy move right now. Guys are available. We got to try something because clearly we don't, they don't want to have the billboard. They don't want to have the chance. Tomlin can say he doesn't care. They want to fix this and have him come back and get rid of this noise. So it's something. It's not nothing. If you ask me, something or nothing that people like to throw out on radio shows, something or nothing. It's something, but it's not. I don't know if it's that much. I guess. That's we'll see here, but the offense has to do way more than last week. You imagine Rodgers will figure something out. It has to do way more, and more importantly, the defense above all else. The defense more than getting a wide receiver 2, maybe the defense has to freaking be better.
Yeah, I would agree. They have to be better. We'll see how much better they're going to be against Derrick Henry, which is my next topic.
Yeah.
Before I get to that, I want to acknowledge Dylan Green 2122 on our YouTube channel. He's trying to talk himself into a win here. He's not. I'm not being very successful doing so. You and me both, brother.
We're not helping him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Neither is our D line. That's just very depleted. Obviously, yeah, it is. Derek Harmon probably not gonna. He's not gonna play today again.
Yeah.
And we saw a spark in that defense when he finally joined the lineup in that New England game. The other thing is when they've had success on the road this year, they've forced turnovers.
Yeah.
So can they force turnovers today? Specifically, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, so if they're going to force turnovers, maybe this is a prediction or a foreshadowing. If they're going to get turnovers, I would imagine they're more on the fumble variety than interceptions. And I know that Derrick Henry never fumbles the ball, but if you notice the last couple years, a little bit more than throughout his whole career, that's borderline Hall of Fame, Lamar Jackson does sometimes fumble the football. And yeah, picks could happen, but we have now seen them. And you go back to that Patriots game, guys, that almost feels like 3 years ago. It's been so long. But you go back to that Patriots game, and I was saying this before in these shows, when the Steelers would force turnovers and get, say, 2 or 3, they would win no matter what else goes on. That's not getting true anymore. Now they're still losing when they force turnovers. So they could force turnovers and still lose this game if the offense doesn't do enough. Or here's the kicker. This is similar to the recent games. They could force turnovers, and so could the Ravens defense, because these defenses are very similar now where they're living and dying off of turnovers and bending but not breaking, and the Ravens playing better than Pittsburgh in that regard. So, yeah, they got to force turnovers to win this, I would imagine, and I would imagine they're going to be really trying to do so. I would think the fumble maybe is a possibility for them, but we are going to see here, and I know that you guys also talked about Harbaugh, so I'll just throw this in here. It is just interesting to me, and he's much more of a delegator than Tomlin. He's been there a long time. His resume is very similar. There was a while where they were kind of in a bit of a stalemate, little funk there, even though they do have a 2-time MVP quarterback. There's pressure to get over the hump now, but they have their QB. And their fans for a while were getting kind of upset, but the noise there is not anywhere near as loud, and you just have to wonder, there are two reasons that I think are the difference of their tenures that are maybe why the noise is louder in Pittsburgh, outside of just Steeler Nation being louder. Number one, you can't argue that they did anything wrong with quarterback choices or development. They got a 2-time MVP. It's just about that guy playing well in the playoffs or figuring out around him. No one's going to say they shouldn't have drafted Lamar Jackson. Whereas with Tomlin and the Steelers, they made a lot of mistakes at that position, which can kill you. And then separately, and they're obviously also a lot closer, but as you guys mentioned and Billy mentioned, the delegating, I think, is different. Tomlin's going to go out there and all of it is on him. Everyone knows all of this is on him. Whereas in Baltimore, you maybe could say this is a borderline Hall of Fame coach, maybe a Hall of Fame coach. If Tomlin goes in, I think he will. Maybe Harbaugh should go in. If he's going to be a Hall of Fame coach, we're a consistent organization. We like to power through. Maybe we do need to first look at the organization, the GM, and they've had different GMs, and look at coordinators and do those things before we go to Harbaugh here, since we're at least getting in the playoffs, because it's not all on him making decisions. He's mature enough to delegate. Tomlin doesn't want to delegate, so that's maybe part of the meeting. Maybe they need to sit him down and say, look, Harbaugh and you are incredibly similar. There's noise here. There's not noise there. They're not lifting the Lombardi trophy either. The way we can fix the noise maybe is you agree, and publicly we have to announce this, that you're willing to delegate some things like kind of he has. And we'll answer the fan questions. There's no more speculation. We will have a press conference say, this guy is doing this. This guy is doing this. This guy's doing that. And there's no more shadiness to this. And if Tomlin pushes back and says, no, it's me or the highway, I don't care what Harbaugh's doing, then that's where you kind of get into, Mike, like, we want you to win the presser here. We don't want to fire a coach, but help us help you get out of here on a positive headline, because we got to do something. But there's difference. People always like to throw them out. Well, same records, one ring, close otherwise, been around a long time, similar ages, personalities. Okay, similar division, obviously same division, but there are differences to their tenure that I think is why there's noise around Tomlin and not Harbaugh.
Well, and I forget who it was, but one of the Ravens beat writers even said that. They said the reason we know he's the delegator is we ask him questions about the offense and the defense.
That,
yeah, and he's like clueless. He doesn't.
Yeah, Tomlin will give you 5 minutes. His press conference is either a half hour where he waxes poetic, or they're 3 minutes and he acts like the media are just ridiculous for asking any questions after they lose by 20 points. Either way, that's basically the Tomlin doctrine there. Yeah.
So, Mike, I had a question for you. So, we know that Lamar Jackson has been hampered by this hamstring injury. I mean, just looking at the numbers, we know he's a rushing quarterback. Before this year, he was averaging 63 yards per game. Now this year, he's averaging 29 yards per game in the rushing department. But, it seems like every week it's something. It's hamstring, it's been knee, it's been toe. Now we're hearing there's a calf injury. I mean, is this gamesmanship by the Ravens?
You mean about the calf injury?
Just about the multiple injuries. Are they kind of is this kind of some gamesmanship by them? Just kind of like, we see it in hockey, lower body injury. But my point is they say hamstring, but there's also been the knee. There's also been the toe. There's now the ankle injury. He missed 2 days, I think, of practice because of this ankle injury.
So I do think there's definitely a possibility, obviously, of gamesmanship. It would be hard for me to say definitively unless I'm in the organization or inside of Harbaugh's head. But I don't think you can dismiss that. I think the funny thing is, I think in high-level Power 4 football and in the NFL, maybe just in general and called in the NFL now, there's gamesmanship in every single injury report around. Right. Nothing is 100% factual. However, what I also definitely think is the case, and there's been reporting of this, and I don't know if there's many sources in Baltimore, but what's out there, he's definitely not 100%, and he's definitely more not 100% here on December 7th than in most years. And normally we start seeing this is normally the Lamar Jackson doctrine. You talk about the Steelers and Tomlin doctrine. Normally he has a great start to the year. He starts getting banged up a little bit, but you get like Willis Reed moments where he's hurt. He comes back. They get a big win. They get in the playoffs. He plays poorly. And then you see the Ravens apologists always come out. Well, he's banged up and hurt. So what do you expect? And that's why it's different than Allen, who's healthy right now. What are you going to do? That's normally what you see. We're getting that a month and a half early. So
Right.
I do think he's legitimately hurt. He's not been as good as in recent years. And I do also believe that because he's so banged up and there's a myriad of injuries there and he did miss games and they were able to kind of fix it, but mostly because the Steelers kept on freaking losing and helped him out. But you're going to see Derrick Henry a lot. So the Steelers defense, especially their D-line, has not been able to fix the run defense that in past Steelers eras was always there, and for the national media shocked, it's not really been there as much in recent years, and this year it's cratered out. But if that keeps on being a problem, this literally could be Derrick Henry throwing it back and a 150-yard day just for him, 180-yard just for him, two touchdowns just for him. He's not the same guy that he was in his prime. I'm not saying that has to be the case for them or they would even want that to be the plan, but he's going to get 20, 25 touches. If this was 3 or 4 years ago, Derrick Henry, he might get 30, 35. I do think they're going to really, really rely on him because they do think Lamar is more banged up, and despite being younger, he's not as healthy here. So that is going to be the thing. So the Steelers they're going to get in the cold tub bath after this one, and it always is the case against the Ravens. But win or lose, they're going to remember the day they faced Derrick Henry here in December, and maybe his last go at this because he's one of the Ravens without a ring. He's going to be hungry, and he's a physical force still. So I would think that if the Ravens have to have Lamar throw 350, scramble around, 4 touchdowns with his arm like he did in Louisville, that's not going to happen with him this banged up. But they need more from him on the ground. But this is going to be the Derrick Henry show if they win. Or else the Steelers maybe could win this. They get some fumbles. Maybe they win this big because the Ravens are so banged up. This is a weird situation. The game plan favors Baltimore, but the Ravens have – all the problems of the Steelers have been going on with Baltimore this year, too. They've not really been that good, which is why the division is still wide open.
I'd be curious to see how this all plays out, like everybody else today. When it comes to the running game today, especially on the Steelers side of things, I mean, look, if I'm Baltimore and you've got a banged-up quarterback, you want to limit him in terms of what he's doing. I would just be feeding Henry all day long. You have to. You have to. And that's going to force.
I mean, against the Bengals, you only had 10 carries for 60 yards, but that got to be double. Got to be double in this.
Oh, without a doubt.
Especially the last time they faced him, obviously, was that playoff game.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, 26 carries, 186 yards.
There you go. That's the game I'm talking about. Yeah.
Before that, 24 carries on 162 yards. The first meeting of last season, they were able to shut him down. Yeah, they were able to. But I mean, so
it's just so. I mean, out of all, literally, out of forget the rivalry. If somebody would have told you the Steelers' run defense is potentially the worst in franchise history, and then the next running back is going to be the worst possible running back they could face, the worst option is Derrick Henry. Like, he hates them. He always does this. He can turn it on for one day. He's almost that quote or that lyric out there that I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm what was it? The good for
not as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I'll ever be.
Once was I ever. Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
No,
go ahead.
The thing, though, too. We talk about the run defense. Yeah, it's been bad.
Yeah.
It also has been. I mean, hey, they only held Jonathan Taylor this season to 45
That's true.
yards.
That is true.
They also,
and that was an MVP candidate running back. Yeah.
Correct. They also, the number 2 rushing team a few weeks ago, the Bears, 99 yards.
Yeah, that's to be fair. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, that to be fair. The weird thing is, prior to the recent conversation on the run game being so bad, because mostly what Buffalo did, the pass defense has been the problem, and the pass defense has been the problem for years. The secondary has been the problem. We've seen that. They're casting players away. They're not able to fix things there. They said, "Oh, Minka, go ahead and leave. Bring in Ramsey." That's not really working. Beanie Bishop, that was great last year. That didn't really linger on to this year, of course. They just are putting Band-Aids on that for 2 or 3 years, and it's never been fixed. Where the run defense was able to be okay enough. Now, the Steelers they've almost found a way to lose in every possible way. They've lost even when the offense has scored. They've lost with mistakes. They've lost on coaching blunders. Rodgers lost a couple games here. They've lost some games with the run defense. They've lost game with the pass defense. That's almost why in every past year, a game like this, and I almost guarantee Paul Zeise is going to come on here and say this is the Tomlin way. He's going to win this game. He's going to somehow beat the Ravens. Backs against the wall. I love Paul, but I feel like that's what he's going to say. And I've said it in recent weeks. It would make sense to say it. But those things that you're talking about, that I'm talking about, that John's talking about, that's why this season feels a little different. That normally is the doctrine. That normally is the plan. If you don't know, lean on that. Sure, if you want to bet, maybe you go Tomlin today. But maybe it's just they're just a bad team. Maybe they're just bad. And maybe they're finally going to have a losing season. And maybe they're finally going to have the meeting. Maybe that's just the way it is. I don't know if I would put money down that's the case, because they could win this. And if they win this, they're probably at least getting the winning season. And if 9 wins could literally win this division. It is not even funny. That is literally the case. That's how bad it is. But maybe they're just bad. Maybe they're just bad. I mean, maybe they're a 7-win team, an 8-win team, and maybe they only win one more the rest of the way. That could be the case. That's in play now. We've seen and watched with our eyes that this team is just not very good. Like, I mean, if this team makes a 2005 run here as a last wild card, or obviously a division champ, and they go ahead and make a run, I think I'd fall off my chair. There's just no chance. I mean, unless something crazy occurs here, based on what we've seen, this roster, the age, a little bit of stubbornness from Tomlin here, maybe they're just finally freaking bad, and that pushes the open of the show to finally occur. But maybe they see North football and they get the win too.
All right, Mike, we appreciate you coming on board. Before we get to your prediction, we've got Ethan is King 84 on our YouTube channel saying, "Good morning, Steeler Nation. Do we think Tomlin redeems himself after this game?" No, I don't.
It depends on your definition of redeem.
Right, right.
I mean, even if they win the game, I don't think that necessarily redeems himself where fans are going to totally shut up. I mean, they're still kind of sick of the tenure a little bit now. Yeah.
All right, let's get a prediction from you, sir.
The Steelers are getting. I would almost advocate not betting on the Steelers this year. This is getting hard. I'm going to say that I just can't. I can't find a way to be an intelligent analyst that gets paid by multiple outlets and pick them to freaking win this in Baltimore. I mean, I get that it wouldn't shock me, but I'm going to go Baltimore here. I'm going to go Derrick Henry does what we're talking about. He's going to get enough. As long as they don't fumble the football 5 or 6 times, I think they do enough. I'm going to say Baltimore gets this victory, more of a 20-16 type of game. This is going to be one of those AFC North slugfest football. Derrick Henry's going to do it enough. He's going to be in post-game presser talking about, hey, people are doubting us. I hate the Steelers. I do this to them all the time. Maybe throwing a hot take jab out there. I think the Ravens are going to get this. They're going to save their year. Harbaugh's going to carry on, and maybe the noise will get the loudest on Mike Tomlin. That's where I have to go here, and I'm also happy to lead off a stacked panel here, a stacked show that has the legend himself. Right? You have
Ed.
Yes. Okay. I didn't want to drop it if it wasn't.
Yeah. No. Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So Ed Bouchette here, 100%. I'm happy. I'm happy to hear Ed Bouchette's going to be joining us at some point here on this show. Fantastic. The legend himself. I've been in some press boxes with him for sure. Shared those boxes in his final seasons with him, and can't say enough great things about Ed. And now he's available. I'll just say that Ed is now available. So happy to be. I'd love to get on with him at some point.
Yeah, no. Hey, listen, at some point, I mean, he's kind enough to give me some time. We'll see if he can, if we can bring him back. But it's nice to be able to have somebody like him on board. Hey, his wealth of knowledge. Yeah, 100%. I mean, covered the Steelers for 35 years.
You want sourcing from Steelers history, even early Tomlin. Obviously, others. I mean, I was a kid, but you guys and Paul, you covered then. But I mean, talked about tapped in. So that maybe somebody the national media will listen to. By the way, I mean,
possibly. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, I've got to go in and start doing some editing on YouTube for that to happen too. But I worked with him many years ago on Ardmore Boulevard. He used to do during the season. He used to do a Monday show. Right. And then Bill Hillgrove would come in on Tuesdays, and then there was an hour where somewhere Myron would come in. So,
what a line! What a line!
Yeah.
Oh man, what a line!
Jim Penna in the afternoons. You know what I mean? It was, and we had Doug Hirth in the mornings. How about that?
Yeah, I think we got a solid lineup. I know who he is.
You know who he is. Okay, yeah. Doug was such a great. Yeah. Well, he was something else. We had a pretty good lineup. We
got a stack lineup here.
It's pretty good
today, but
absolutely,
that lineup's insane. It
was pretty good.
Lineup's a Hall of Fame lineup there. I don't. So, I'm happy to lead off in front of Ed. I'm sure he can knock some runs home.
Mike Ostie, managing editor of Pittsburgh Media Sports Now, part of the Pittsburgh Sports Now family of websites. National writer for Yardbarker, can be heard on Sirius XM. Mike, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Good morning, and tell Ed I said hi.
I will. Good to talk to you, Mike. Thanks,
you. Mike.
Yeah, man.
Always delivering the goods, Mike Ostie. Nice to chat with him. We are Steel City Sunday, live from the North Park Lounge, Richland, and the Hilltop Event Center. Facebook, YouTube, and X live until about 12:30, 12:40 today. We're going to try to bring you about 4 hours. And again, follow us on social media, all the major social media sites right there at Steel City Sunday. You can check us out. We've got daily programming. We've got daily content. We're adding some shows starting tomorrow. My schedule slows down in December and January, and depending on where I might be, I tend to be home in December from my day job. All right, I'm in the construction business. I'm in staffing, and I work with a lot of big companies. I'm excited that on Monday, tomorrow, starting at 7 o'clock on Mondays and Tuesdays, I've got a new show that we're debuting. I'll be hosting it. It's called Pittsburgh Sports Tonight. You'll be able to check it out on X, YouTube, and Facebook. Did you get the email I sent you with the logo by any chance? I want to pop the logo in there if we can. It's in the little upper corner here right now. But Pittsburgh Sports Tonight debuts tomorrow at 7 o'clock. I don't know if I'm going to have a guest in the first show. I may just want to take the hour just to talk myself. But on Tuesday, I'm going to have John Ziegler on. And John Ziegler has been in the media for 3 decades. He's done radio in Los Angeles, New York, other markets. He did an expose a few years ago during COVID on the Joe Paterno, Jerry Sandusky saga. And when I found him on X a few weeks ago, I thought he was just interesting because he was chatting about the college football playoff, and he hates the sports media. He hates the media in general. Much like I do, to my disdain at times. But I went to his page and I saw his pinned tweet, and the subject matter blew my head off. And I reached out to him. He's going to join me Tuesday. It completely goes against the narrative of what took place in 2011 when the Sandusky story broke. Paterno was eventually removed, and then Sandusky went to jail. It completely blows that narrative out the door. And, not that I think anybody that's watching right now is going to remember, but I was working at the Fan at the time, and I went on the attack. Everybody that knows me knows that I have a disdain for Joe Paterno and Penn State, primarily because of what they've done to destroy one of the great college football rivalries. Pitt had a big part in that. Oval Janes and the administration in the late 80s, early 90s at Pitt did not help. Joe wanted to form an Eastern Football Conference. Pitt went to the Big East. They blocked Penn State from joining, which forced them to go to the Big Ten. Joe never forgave them for that and eventually killed that rivalry off. That's going to be on Tuesday's show. Pittsburgh Sports Tonight debuts on Monday at 7 o'clock right here on X, Facebook, and YouTube. You can go check that out on Mondays and Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Thank you for doing that for me, Bill. Okay. This is Steel City Sunday, live from the North Park Lounge, Richland Hilltop Event Center. They've got breakfast with Santa. Got a lot of nice families in here, bringing the kids in. You can come here and have breakfast. You can go say hi to Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. They're having that through the end of the year here on Saturdays and Sundays. A great event for families. Please check that out. And, of course, our show every week is brought to you in part by Arch Masonry and Restoration. They've been with us since the very beginning. I've been working with Arch Masonry for over a decade now in the construction staffing business. And I'm going to tell you right now, Arch is a great company. If you're a bricklayer or a block layer, if you're a construction guy, a laborer, maybe you work with concrete and your company has slowed down or has stopped and you're looking for work, Arch Masonry is busy, and they are looking for you. If you have no experience, that's okay. You can learn on the job, and that's because they have advancement programs and classes that can get your career in the right direction, especially when it comes to the building trades. Call 412-564-5733 or visit their website, archmasonryinc.com. I'm John Phillips. I'm the host of Steel City Sunday. Bill Aiken's joining me. And in just a few moments, we are going to be joined by Paul Zeiss of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, as he does every single week on our pregame show. Paul gives us his time. We sit down and we talk about things. I'm certainly going to get into the article that he wrote in today's Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We'll talk about that column that he wrote. I think it is spot on. Prolonging the cycle of delusion. We've got Simmers 316 checking in via YouTube. Personally, if we lose today, I'd fire Tomlin after the game. Well, as we alluded to, Simmers, they don't fire coaches. They haven't fired a coach since the 1940s. Ethan is King 84. More John time during the week. I'm in. I just want to say you really have the broadcaster's it factor. Proud of you. Thank you, Ethan. 30-plus years of doing this. I should sound a little bit like I know what I'm talking about. And look, I've said this privately, and I've probably mentioned it publicly once or twice. Ethan, this is a vanity project for me. I wanted back into the Steelers space, and I made this happen on I made this happen on such short notice. It's disgusting. I actually wanted to produce this with another company, but the timing wasn't right. I had talked to a production company in Wexford, and when I did, the timing just did not work out, unfortunately. It was just bad timing. And so I was able to put this together with the good folks, Mark Baranovsky and the North Park Lounge Restaurant Group, to get this show on the air. Arch came on board. We pay the people that come on every single week, pay for Bill's time, right? I don't make any money doing this. This is more of a labor of love. Now, my wife has a few things to say about that. And we are trying to find a few more sponsors. Look, if the Steelers win today, I'm going to go out there tomorrow and this coming week and try to, bring a few more people on board. But we've got more planned. I appreciate it, Dylan Green, 2122 checking in. Yeah, we're going to be on X, YouTube, and Facebook every single Monday and Tuesday. We're already streaming Bill's show, right? We've got the Pittsburgh Sports Desk on Wednesdays. That's at 8 o'clock. On Thursdays, it's the Gridiron
Weekly
show. And you co-host that with who again?
John Restaino from Buffalo.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that show.
Zig's buddy. Zig's childhood friend.
That's right. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. And Tracy and Mac, right, on Wednesdays. So, we're adding more programming, and I've got more in the pipeline. In my mind, we're just trying to get through the season here. And hopefully, this, ends on a good note. Look, like I said earlier, we've had some pretty solid, numbers last week, over 4,000 people watching it. And again, Ethan is King 84. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. And with literally no advertising budget. So, it's working out pretty well so far. I could listen to John talk all day. That's from Nick Avocado. Thanks, Nick. I try to talk as little as I can because I've got guys like this joining us right now. I want him to do the talking because he's been covering sports for over 30 years, most of it at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Temple graduate, all around, and Penn Trafford alum. Mr. Paul Zeiss joining us this morning. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
All right. Where are you at this morning? That looks like a hotel room.
I'm at my cousin's house.
Excellent.
I had to do a little makeshift thing in order to get a little corner of the house here.
There you go. See, that's it. So, good morning, Paul. Welcome to the show this morning. And I whipped out the Post-Gazette like I always do. I get both newspapers. And there's your article talking about a win prolonging the cycle of delusion. I want to get into it with you right away. I think it was spot on. A victory prolongs I don't want to say dementia. It prolongs the psychosis of, hey, this team's going to compete and do well, and then the following week the cycle just continues because it's those peaks and valleys. Thoughts on what you put out today? I thought it was very spot on, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I try to basically always be realistic and reasonable, and that's what I did. I mean, from the standpoint of, you know what, if they win this game, then we go into the cycle of basically trying really hard to um, explain to ourselves that, hey, this is a really good team again, and all the other stuff that we talk about. That's probably the biggest problem, I would tell you. It is always an interesting thing to me when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean this whole situation has really spiraled this year. Obviously, when you go through these ups and downs, they started 3-1. They had the bye week. Everybody was in a great mood. Baltimore was falling apart. Everybody lost during the bye week, which made things look even better. And then you come down the road 8 weeks later, and you're in this dogfight with your most bitter rival in a division that has really just taken it on the chin this year. Usually the AFC North is uber competitive, and you've got at least three teams slugging it out. And here you do, with the Bengals obviously losing Joe Burrow for a good portion of the season has not helped them, but they have kind of revived themselves and quasi put themselves back into the mix. But the Ravens and Steelers, who are the consummates in the division, are floundering 6-6. You're not sure which way they're going to go. A win does prolong the issues, I think, for sure. And I guess I want to get into John Harbaugh a little bit here. We've talked obviously ad nauseum about Mike Tomlin and what has unfolded over the last few years. If you look at Harbaugh's record, not much different. I mean, he's got a few playoff wins, but the success isn't there with 3 MVPs for Lamar. They haven't been able to get to a Super Bowl, and the talk that's been going on here in Pittsburgh is starting to heat up in Baltimore as well for him.
Well, it should, because, I mean, I think, you have Lamar Jackson, you have a very dynamic playmaker, you have, a team over the last couple of years that's been good enough, but they seem to shoot themselves in the foot a lot. They seem to be, I've said this a lot, I watch the Ravens, and they look to me, honestly, like they're one of the dumbest teams in football. I mean, they just make mistake after mistake after mistake. They don't look to me like a well-coached team, but I think they've got some players on that team that make a lot of mistakes as well. And so to me, it feels like it is really important to note that, you know what, it could be time for that to end. Probably should be. If they don't do something this year, especially if they don't even win the division, I mean, it tells me they probably should do something. And not waste more years of Lamar Jackson.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, again, you look at, Tomlin when he came in, obviously he had Ben early in his career, got him to 2 Super Bowls, but, a lot of what ifs, especially in the middle portion of the last decade when they had the killer bees, they had Le'Veon Bell, they had, an Antonio Brown who was focused and just destroying the NFL when he was either returning kicks or, of course, was, making plays as a wide receiver. Ethan is King 84 checking in. Paul argues that winning delays needed change. What evidence do you have that losing would actually force the front office to do anything differently given their historical reluctance to overhaul? Look, the Schefter story. I think that, Paul, and I'm pretty sure you probably saw it. Ian Rappaport saying if the Steelers win today, that's going to kill all of that. What did you think of the Schefter story? And this caveat inside the extension where, by March, the Steelers have an option not to extend him into 2027. That was a pretty interesting development yesterday.
Well, I mean, I don't think any of that's relevant. The Steelers are going to do what they do. They operate the way they operate. Everyone looks for like these deadlines and stuff. The Steelers never, ever worry about that kind of stuff. They do things the way they want to do them because that's how they are. And so to me, I look at it and I basically say, from the standpoint of if they win, if they go 9-8 or whatever, they definitely won't make any changes, right? But if they're able to go and do some things differently, you know what I mean? Where they lose, they go 8-9, they don't make the playoffs, it would probably force at least some action or some things to happen. They're never going to be a team that completely overreacts. They're never going to be a team that basically goes and goes and like completely rips everything apart, but at least they will probably go and make some changes. I would think that, this seems like a point where if they don't do well enough, it'll be a problem.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Paul Zeiss joining us here on the show. Of course, Paul, longtime writer with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You check him out on X at Paul Zeiss, and you have an opportunity to, of course, pick up a Sunday news. $6 for a Sunday Post-Gazette, Paul. What does the world come to, for crying out loud? I will say it's a supersized newspaper.
Right, it's the bargain, right? It is what it is. And nowadays, everything costs money, right?
Yeah, that's right. Inflation is a real thing for sure. Of course, I do remember those Sundays many years ago, being jammed with comics and all that fun stuff. But it still has a lot of good information for sure. Okay, let's talk about the defense. No Derek Harmon today. I think Alex Highsmith is out as well from what I saw. So how many carries is Derrick Henry going to get, and how bad will he bludgeon them?
The offensive line of the Ravens is not great right now, and they've, struggled a little bit. The problem is, Derek Harmon's not playing again, and so it's going to be very interesting to see if the Ravens – stick with the running game and try and pound, Derrick Henry. I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to run wild, just because I think if you watch the Ravens this year, their offensive line has been a really tough disappointment, actually, in many ways. So I just feel like it's one of those things where they are going to be, obviously in one of these situations that John Harbaugh doesn't seem to like to do the things that you'd have to do to win games all the time. You know what I mean? And it's almost like he's going to try and do other things, even though the obvious thing would be, let's just try and pound Derrick Henry at him and see what happens.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think they've got to feed him if they're going to, if Lamar is as banged up as he is, and I'm not saying he can't be productive, but I mean, he's banged up, and when your quarterback is hurting, much like ours is, and I'll be curious to see if Aaron has the cast on. I would think he's probably going to have the cast on. This is a real, everybody dreamed about this matchup, right? They wanted to see Aaron Rodgers play Lamar Jackson, and between them, 7 MVPs between the two of them. May not be the dream matchup that people have been hoping for between these two, but if I'm the Ravens, I'm going to run the ball as often as I can, unless the Steelers are up to the challenge, which their rush defense hasn't been for the vast majority of the season. Conversely, on the other side, Steelers did not run the ball well against the 30th ranked rushing defense at the time last week in ball against the Buffalo Bills. A difference this week? Anything that you might see with the Steelers trying to run the ball against the Ravens?
I mean, again, they're not going to have Broderick Jones, and so if you're not going to have Broderick Jones, that probably takes away from what you're able to do and all that other stuff. I think that's the most important thing to remember. If you don't have Broderick Jones out there, it's one of those things where I don't know that I love your chances I'm sorry, I don't know that I love your chances to figure out what it is that you are going to be able to do in the running game. That's the thing to me. I had a little glitch here in my computer. The running game to me is one of those things where the Steelers can make it work if they continue to do it and 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 do it. But they just don't. So, I mean, I think that's one of the things where it's a problem where they go away from it too quick. They don't really let it materialize.
Fair point for sure. I guess that leads us to the next topic in terms of the Steelers offense. Marquez Valdes-Scantling has been moved up from the practice squad. The Steelers picked up not the 2018 Pro Bowl Adam Thielen. They picked up the 2025 version of Adam Thielen. Is there a wide receiver too amongst those two?
I mean, again, they picked up Adam Thielen, who's 38 years old or something. I mean, come on. I mean, I guess he has a chance maybe to be better than what they have. I don't know. I mean, come on. Valdes-Scantling, I mean, there was a reason he was available when he was available. I mean, again, maybe they're better than the guys that are here. Maybe they're not. But at the end of the day, I think it's one of those things where I just think at this point it's a pipe dream. You're just reaching for straws and hoping you catch something, lightning in a bottle somehow.
I suggest they put those two into a lab with a mad scientist and try to create a super wide receiver between the two of them. But that might actually be closer to the truth and reality than I'm leading on to believe right now. Yeah, you're right. It is grasping for straws. At this point in the season, any move of this nature is generally something out of desperation. I mean, look, a win today, they have, essentially a 2-game lead on Baltimore. And, right now Baltimore already owns a tiebreaker, and currently, if the season were to end, would make the playoffs. The Steelers would be out. So this game very much important for the Steelers to win right now. They want to win this one and, worry about the path that's down the road. I've had some people tell me that, hey, the Steelers have a little bit easier schedule than Baltimore going down the stretch. Mind you, the Steelers next week on, I believe, what is a Monday night game, they're getting Miami, who's won, 5 in a row now. And they'll have a chance to claim victory today. I'm looking at the schedule right now. I'm trying to pull it up here. I forget who they're playing right now, but I know that they're at the New York Jets, a very winnable game for the Dolphins, who have won 4 straight, I should say. You've got them. Then you've got to go and play at Detroit. You have Cleveland, and then, of course, the last game at home against the Ravens. As for Baltimore and their schedule, I'm trying to pull their schedule up here right now. A little bit lighter schedule as far as I'm concerned. Some people say it's harder. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. But and again, it just kind of ties back into your article. A win by either of these teams does prolong the agony of what could be very much a miserable season. I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. We've got Paul Zeiss of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette joining us here on Steel City Sunday. We are live from the North Park Lounge, Richland, and the Hilltop Event Center. We are also brought to you in part by Arch Masonry and Restoration, who is hiring in Pittsburgh, looking for professional craftsmen with experience in brick and block work. If you're a concrete finisher, bricklayer, block layer, construction laborer, great. Give them a call, 412-564-5733. If you're not busy and not working and you want to get to work, Arch has it. If you have no experience, that's okay. You can learn on the job through advancement programs and classes that can get your career in the building trades jump-started. 412-564-5733. Visit archmasonryinc.com to learn more. We will be joined by Todd Haley in about 12 minutes for Haley's Huddle. Paul will be alongside of that as well. We'll have some picks for you as well. Paul didn't need any of those points predicting Carolina's victory last week. I don't know. I have to go back and take a look, but I think you were 4-1 again, Paul.
Yeah, well, I was. I actually was, and I think I did. The Carolina game. I'm telling you, every week there's a game in the NFL that you look at. You say everyone is going to assume that this team is going to win, but it's going to set up for this team to win. I think almost every weekend there's a game like that. And last weekend, the Rams were, the Rams are the team that everybody thinks might be the best team in the NFL. They're rolling. They're, they're going in to play against the Carolina team that's just sort of okay. That's the one. And then, the Carolina's played better. The Rams have not played so well. The Rams have played well, but last week I'd say Carolina's been playing better. I think they've actually at home. They're probably going to be the team that probably wins this game.
If I only listened. Ben Goodson checking in from the United Kingdom, a UK Steelers fan, saying he's bracing for the 6 p.m. kickoff. Yeah, everybody is right now. Ben, thanks for watching us on YouTube across the pond. Again, Todd Haley in about 10 minutes. God, I don't even know where to go at this point in time. Let's talk a little bit more about the defense, I suppose. They've been disappointing, to say the very least. Derek Harmon not going to be playing again today. The run defense has been pushed to the limits, I think, throughout the course of the season. Let's say the season ends on a bad note. Steelers don't make the playoffs. What can they do? And again, based on Tomlin, what can they do to revamp the most prolific defense in this team's history at 160 million? Is there anything they can do with those big contracts, especially some of these others?
One of the biggest things, John, the stars have to start playing like stars. That's where you start with. I mean, I think this defense is built on and predicated on big plays and on impact plays and on all that other stuff. Your stars have to be stars, and if they're not stars and they don't make star plays, it's hard for your defense to be good. Because this defense is predicated on game-changing plays, sacks, strip sacks, some forced fumbles, interceptions, all those things, quarterback hits, quarterback hurries, all those things. And if they're not doing that, they're just sort of ordinary. I mean, that's the reality. I think there's a lot of guys on this defense that are just sort of ordinary, and I think that's why when the stars aren't being stars, then what happens, it's very clear to see, is the defense at large gets taken advantage of. I mean, I think the secondary's got a lot of big names, but I think most of them are just sort of pedestrian. And, if you're forcing them to cover guys for longer than an X amount of time, it's probably going to turn into a big play for the other team. The linebackers, I mean, especially the inside linebackers, they're just sort of okay. They're not great. They're just sort of okay. The defensive linemen, not named Cam Hayward, they're just, especially with Harmon out, they're just sort of okay. So you need Cam Hayward, you need Alex Highsmith, you need Jalen Ramsey, you need TJ Watt, you need them to make big plays. If they don't, your defense is going to be pedestrian and ordinary.
How much of that is scheme? How much of that is with TJ? No. Go ahead. How much of it is scheme? And I hear what you're saying about making plays. How much of it is scheme to you?
I mean, the scheme, we've heard plenty of people talk about how the scheme is really elementary and all that other stuff. But I just believe that in years past, it's been the same scheme, and it's been able to be really good defense because the big name players made big plays. This year, it's not happening. That's we can go on and on and on about the schemes. We can go on and on about all the different things that people want to talk about. But the reality is, I got to be honest with you. The reality of the whole situation to me is that you have stars who are not playing like stars.
No, you're right. You are, and TJ's the big one. I mean, I think that's Cam aside, TJ's the big one. Obviously, that people are looking at when you give a guy like that $40+ million at the age of 30, you're possibly asking for problems. I think Bill wants to jump in here with a question. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, Paul, I want to just say this about the defense. I think it's been a roller coaster this year because you look at it. I mean, how do you give up the yardage you gave up to Chase Brown, for the Bengals? They were coming into that game, they were averaging 57 yards. On the other hand, you held Jonathan Taylor, the Colts, to 45 yards. And a couple of weeks ago, you held the Bears, which are the number 2 rushing team at that point in time, to 99 yards. So it's just been up and down for this defense, but no consistency. It's either really bad or really good, it seems like.
And a lot of times, again, that's just basically what you have when you have a defense that's almost 100% predicated on stars making plays. Right. That's what you're going to run into, period.
And you talk about the secondary. I mean, what, two-fifths of the secondary is no longer with us. I mean, they got rid of Thornhill, got rid of Darius Slay. So, it's just been – things just haven't been working out for them.
They keep adding. It seems like they've added 46 different guys to the secondary. Some of them big names. Sooner or later, you throw the dart at the dartboard enough, something's got to stick, right? Something's going to hit.
Yeah, right, exactly.
What did you think of the story of Slay getting picked up? Who was it that they picked him up? Buffalo, and then him and his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, saying that he wants to contemplate retirement.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Yeah,
quite.
he didn't report, and I guess I think he got fined too. He didn't report. He was supposed to report at a certain time, and he didn't report. He said he was contemplating retirement. So
Somebody floated the idea, Paul, and I don't know how you feel about this. Where when you're a veteran of so many years, that when you're placed on waivers or what have you, you should have the option to pick where you want to go. How do you feel about that? Just out of curiosity.
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. And the reason that you shouldn't have the option is because two things. One, you have the situations like James Harrison, forcing his way out, and then he gets to go sign. Now, it worked out for him because nobody else wanted him. But my point is, you have that. The other thing you have is basically you could do a soft trade, even though the trade deadline is over, right? What would be to stop two owners or two general managers to say, hey, wink, wink, we'll cut this guy, you pick him up, and then at the draft you trade us, you make a sweetheart trade for us, you know what I mean, or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
there's all kinds of ways that collusion could happen and all kinds of stuff. The waiver system basically makes sure that if you're going to cut a guy, that every team in the league has an opportunity to sign him.
Fair enough, and that's why I asked. Okay, we're going to bring in the coach, Todd Haley, who's joining us. He joins us every week. Todd Haley, former Steelers offensive coordinator, head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. With the shades, look at that. How you doing, Coach?
I'm in Mexico. You got to wear shades.
Whereabouts? Whereabouts in Mexico are you?
No, I don't believe in shades. Talking to men. I'm in Holbox, Mexico, in the Yucatan.
I love the Yucatan. I've been to the Yucatan a couple times. That's pretty amazing. Did you go to Chichen Itza by any chance?
No. We've been only in Holbox. We flew into Cancun and drove the 3 hours. Took the ferry across to the island. It's wonderful.
Yeah, if you get a chance, go see the pyramid there. It's pretty amazing. Okay, thanks for coming on board with Paul and I. And so, Coach, been a crazy week. Obviously, the end results of Sunday were not pleasant, and then the rollout on social media, which really doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, other than the noise itself. Assessment after Sunday, and where you feel this franchise is right now, sitting at 6-6.
Well, I think they're right in the crosshairs, for sure. You're up against it. Now thankfully you're playing the team that you're probably going to be battling till the end twice here in the next month. So, that was a really tough game. You turn the football over like they did, even though they got a couple big takeaways. But you give up a fumble recovery for a touchdown. When the score's in hand, and then that's a crusher, and then another turnover, failed conversion at the end was a killer. So, not a good game. On top of that, you got run over. I mean, us three talked about time of possession. That's a stat the Steelers like to have in their favor. I know it was very important to us when I was there, and the time of possession, 41 minutes for the Bills. Kind of that correlates to getting run over because the defense is out there way too long. They're exhausted, and the Bills have a really good running back and a quarterback that can hurt you. So I think, that was a stat. When I talked about it last week, what did I say? I said, they need to win the running game, both offensively and defense. Negative. They didn't do it. Turnovers were even, but you give up a score. Just a rough second half specifically. So, now this is one of those games. It's Ravens week. I've told this story many times. My first Wednesday when we were getting ready to play the Ravens, I hear pads clanking, hitting, helmets crashing. I'm like, what is going on? It didn't sound like any practice I had been a part of before in my career. And everybody that I said it to is like Ravens week. So that's got to be the mentality. I think this now becomes a knockdown, drag out, physical game. So, and who comes out on top, it's going to be really critical. Will probably more than likely be the team that ends up winning the division. I don't think the Steelers' path to the playoffs is as a wild card. So, this is a game that whoever wins this one, takes a stronghold. But, both teams have a difficult schedule the rest of the way, and they have to play each other the last game of the year. So if the Steelers lose this one, that last game of the year, again, that's why they're sitting behind the Ravens right now, is divisional wins. I would think the Steelers have to figure out a way to go on the road and win this game.
Paul, anything for Todd?
Well, I mean, I think we talked about the fact that Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson are very similar, probably to Josh Allen and James Cook. Maybe probably if you look at their skill set and what they do and how they run their offense. But to me, Lamar Jackson looks like he's a little bit banged up. He looks like he is not what he usually is, where he's real slippery and can run. If you take that element away, his legs. How does that change sort of the Ravens' offense? And can Derrick Henry? I mean, obviously we've seen him in Tennessee carry the load. I mean, but is he good enough to carry the load without that extra element from Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I think the combination of them both, Paul, obviously is what makes it really deadly combination. So yeah, I agree. Lamar's a little beat up. Does that mean they still don't line up and make it look like there's some RPOs happening or read options, and he's just handing it every time? I think the Steelers will figure that out pretty quickly. But, Lamar's come a long way as a passer. This isn't 5 years ago when, he strictly was relying on his legs and making, electrifying plays, when things don't go the way they're supposed to. So, it's gonna be that exact type of game of last week, and the mistakes that the Steelers made against the Bills, if they make them again, they'll probably lose. But win time of possession, figure out a way to run the football. This Ravens defense has been a lot better, but I still don't think they're the Ravens of old. By any means, but they are better. But you got to figure out a way to run the football, possess the ball, keep the ball out of their hands.
All right, we're joined by Todd Haley, former offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Paul Zeiss of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette joining us as well. Bill Akins wants to jump on board and has some things he wants to discuss. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I mean, I agree. He's banged up. I mean, we've heard all season he's been hampered by this hamstring injury. 1 week it's a knee. Last week it was an ankle. He was limited in practice. I mean, there's just been so many injuries. I think it's a little bit of gamesmanship too by the Ravens, because week after week and there's even been a toe thrown in there this season, guys. But when you look at it, I mean, he was averaging going into this year. He was averaging 63 yards rushing a game. Now he's averaging 29 yards per game rushing. So there's something going on there. He's banged up. Let's just and I'm noticing some of his balls are sailing on him too. I'm noticing that, and you didn't notice that before, especially last year. Coach, I wanted to ask you a question here. So I'm going to throw some pretty staggering stats out at you. Arthur Smith's offense hasn't connected on a pass of 20-plus yards since Week 8 against the Packers. DK Metcalf in the first 7 games caught passes of 31, 80, 25, 39, and 24 yards, but nothing longer than 19 yards in the last 5 games. They need an offensive spark. Last week against the Bills, you had a season low of 166 total yards in offense. What do they need to do, Coach? I mean, do they need to – is it drop the conservatism of the offense and let's let it fly, or what do they need to do to get this spark going?
Well, I think when I've been in situations like that, you force feed some balls down the field early, and that's hard to do because – the percentage isn't necessarily in your favor that you're going to complete it, but you could get a PI. More good things can happen for the offense than the defense. So, I've been in that situation where you're doing a self-scout and you're like, what the heck? The ball just isn't going down the field enough. So it's got to change. So, I think you got to draw up some protected things that give you options outside when you get the single high. Maybe it's a run tied to a go route. That was one of our favorites when I was in Pittsburgh. We might call the go first, and if it's too high, you check it and you run the football into too high defense, and hopefully you get 4 or 5 yards, and life is good. But you come right back and call it again. And if you get 8 yards on that first one, chances are they probably drop a safety down, and now you get to run the go play. So you put your best guys outside, you block it up, you tie it with a run. It's not rocket science, but definitely been in situations where I'm like, we got to throw the football down the field multiple times early in this game. I don't care if it's an incompletion. It lets the defense know that we are trying to attack them down the field, and that tends to open other things up.
We're joined by Todd Haley, former Steelers offensive coordinator, Paul Zeiss of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and of course, we've got Bill Akins alongside of us. This is Steel City Sunday, live from the North Park Lounge, Richland Hilltop Events Center. Please come up and join us. We are here every Steelers game live prior to and afterwards. We will have our post-game show today with John Fedko and Jerry DePaula immediately following the contest. But, of course, stick around here for the next 2 hours or so for some more pregame coverage. Coach, Marquez Valdez-Scantling got called up from the practice squad. Steelers went out and got Adam Thielen. Band-Aids. What do you think you might see from them today? Anything that you might see from them today? Or do you?
Well, I like both players. I love Adam Thielen. Now, I know he's at the end, but he is that type of guy that I could see as a role player. Third down, playing inside. You're not going to design a lot of things outside, but the guy has great feel for the game within the numbers. And so I think that could be a guy that could easily get integrated into, at least have a small package that, he and Aaron get to know each other during the week. He's a smart guy now. He gets it 100%. It's just, there's going to be limitations. So, those role players are kind of what I feel like is missing on this Steelers team. When we were rolling offensively back in the day, Darius Hayward-Bay was one of those role players that didn't get a lot of fanfare, but, man, he was so important to us in so many ways. Good teams have those guys that understand the role, understand what their job is on every play, whether it's blocking in the run game or finding a way to get open in certain coverages. You need those type of guys, and I see that missing right now with the Steelers. It's kind of, here's the couple big dogs, and then a lot of other guys just kind of running around.
Paul, I'll open up to you.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think one of the things that we saw at least last week, and obviously Aaron Rodgers had that thing on his hand, and it was new, and maybe it was messing with him, but there were guys that were getting open. I don't know that. I've heard a lot of what I would call Twitter scouts talking about how the scheme is bad and the offense is bad and all this other stuff, but it looks to me like they've had opportunities to make plays and they just can't connect right now. And hopefully, for their sake, that Aaron Rodgers is able to overcome a little bit whatever it is going on. Obviously, it's different, but I don't know what do you see, Todd? To me, it looks like they have had opportunities to make plays and just haven't made them.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the scheme. It's so much better than it was a couple years back. It looks coordinated. It looks like guys are getting coached. The unsung heroes in this thing are the assistant coaches that are working with these guys every day, and it's the coordinator's job to get them to get the players to do exactly what they want to see. And I think you're seeing that. You're seeing coordination within the offense. There's good schemes being drawn up. The run game looks good. I like the integration of Washington into the mix. It's just it comes down again, and I think they've done a better job with Metcalf of moving him around a little bit, trying to create opportunities. But then he'll drop one, or Aaron will miss one. It's just what I think you're saying. They're lacking confidence right now, and confidence is such a big thing in football in any area, but especially offense, especially a quarterback. And when you're coming off injury, you may be worrying a little bit. The body language wasn't great from Aaron. I hope that picks up this today. So, it's just a matter of putting it together. But this is one of those type of Steeler games where everybody thinks they're down and out, and all of a sudden they put it together. So I would not be shocked by the Steelers going into Baltimore and winning.
Yeah, we've talked about ebbs and flows, and you certainly have talked about how your father said you got to tune it out, right? The noise, you got to tune it out. How hard do you think it was this week for Mike? Just from your perspective as a former head coach, as a former coordinator, and tuning that out. It was pretty loud this week, the loudest maybe it's ever been during his time here.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. Mike, when he says he thrives on adversity, we were kind of similar personalities. The worse people told us we were, the better we performed in one way or another. I think he really does thrive in adversity. And when things are rough and it's loud, people are talking about his name and not being there and fire Tomlin and all that. I think he eats that up and thrives on it and pushes it up a notch.
Your former quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, floated that Mike Tomlin should maybe be considered for the Penn State job, which was kind of funny. But the other thing he said was that this offense doesn't look much different than Matt Canada's offense, and that the scheme is bad, and that they need to let Aaron Rodgers cook. Obviously, every quarterback, I think, thinks that every quarterback should run the offense. But I don't know. It feels to me like Aaron Rodgers has. I mean, you know better than me, but it looks to me like he's got leeway to see what's going on out in the field and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, there's a lot of checks. There's a lot of runs that are called that he throws it where he sees the opportunity. I see a lot of leeway. I think Ben, if we're up to Ben, he'd have been an empty every single play of every single game, and that's the way he liked to play. But, I don't know that it's always conducive to a pathway to victory. So in a game like this, they're going to have to cross their T's, dot their I's, possess the ball. I would say winning that time of possession is critical. Winning turnovers always is, but find ways to, and every point's going to matter. This isn't going to be one of those, Dan Campbell games where you're going for it on every single fourth down. I mean, if you got opportunities to get Boswell out there and put points on the board, take it.
Just a couple more minutes with Todd Haley here on Steel City Sunday. This just came across the wire here on social media, if you will. There's a podcast called Speakeasy out there. It's got like 2.5 million subscribers. It's a late night show. Well, apparently Darius Slay was on yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, Paul, but he was asked about Mike Tomlin, and he says Tomlin's not the problem on the defensive side of the ball. He says it's just how things are working out. The chips aren't falling the way that they would like them to. Everybody's going to have to, go back to a drawing board of sorts. Some interesting comments from Slay, who we were talking about earlier. Anything that you might want to add to that, Paul, in terms of what he had to say? He's saying it's not Tomlin's fault. He says,
listen. Nothing is Mike Tomlin's fault. Nothing. He has nothing to do with anything. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm just going to say this. I'll say it one more time, John, for the cheap seats. Okay? Through this, 8-9 year stretch without a playoff win, they've changed coordinators multiple times on both sides of the ball. They've changed general managers. They've changed quarterbacks about 15 times. They've changed assistant coaches. They've rebuilt the front office. There's only been one constant, but it's not his fault. Listen, there's so many things that happen. Believe me, I get it. Todd has been a part of the organization. He knows. There's so many things that happen. It's not always just one guy's fault. But at some point, the buck has to stop there. I'm sorry. I know that people get upset about that, and we love Mike, and Mike is great. He's a great, he's a great personality. He seems like a really good dude, all that great stuff. But at the end of the day, over 9 years, multiple coordinators, multiple assistant coaches, front office completely revamped in many different ways, okay, different general manager, 16 different quarterbacks. At some point, the constant has to have some hand in what's going on. I maybe I'm wrong.
Fair. Let's just say that. Fair enough, and thank you. All right, Todd, before we let you go, a prediction, unless you want to add something to that, a prediction on today's game, sir.
The only thing I'd add is within the building, I'm sure, and I've seen it firsthand, there is accountability from Mike, and I think that's what makes him real within the building is, he doesn't pass the buck. He doesn't put it on somebody else. When he feels like he made a mistake, he owns it. So I think that is going on within the building, and that's what kind of keeps it together. So that's the only thing I'll add. Prediction, I'm going to go these games are so rough. I hated going to Baltimore. I'm going to say the Steelers figure out how to stop the run, and they win it 20-17.
Todd Haley, former head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs and, of course, coordinator with the Steelers, the Browns, and Arizona Cardinals, Upper St. Clair native. Thank you for joining us from Mexico, sir, and enjoy the rest of your trip.
You guys, too. Thanks for having me, Paul. Good talking to you. Stay on it.
All right, good seeing you. Yeah, it's good seeing you as always.
Don't let up.
Always.
Don't
yeah, right. Yeah, that's one. There's another constant right there. Paul not letting up. All right, Paul. Before we get Todd out of here, we're gonna go and try to recapture some of your magic. Unless you got something you want to add, Bill. Do you want to add to that right there? I don't want to add it. I just want to find that clip and get it out and get it to go viral. That's what I want. That's my goal after this show, Paul, is find that clip and get it to go viral. Yeah, that's right. All right, before I let you go, we got 5 games. Let's talk about 5 games here against the spread. You were pretty solid last week, as you have been through the course of the year. Let's start with Seattle and Atlanta. Just because it's the first game I'm looking at. The Seahawks on the road laying 6.5. How do you feel about that one, Paul?
The Falcons have been really horrific. But in general, they seem to play close games. So I think at home, I'm going to go Atlanta plus the 6.5. I kind of like them getting those points.
These teams, some of these teams, I'm like a moth to a flame when it comes to New Orleans, Tennessee every week. I'm fading this horrible football team. I'll lay the 6.5 and against Seattle and Atlanta. All right. Another horrible football game here. Tennessee at Cleveland. The Browns, combined 4 wins between these two teams. This is a stinker, but the Browns are 3.5-point favorites at home. What say you, Paul?
Would I be lying if I said this game could actually end 3-0? That's bizarre. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that somehow the Browns will cover. What do they call it? The hook. The Browns will cover the hook, right?
Yes.
And they'll, it could be 5-0. They could get a safety and a field goal, 5-0. They cover the 3.5. I'm going to say that they're going to be able to, because their defense is the best unit on the field of the 4 units that'll be on the field. I'll say the Browns probably are going to be able to win and cover that 3.5.
All right, I'm in agreement with you. I say 7-2 for the final score in that one. All right, Bill wants to chime in. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Paul, real quick, I want to get your take on something. So the news came out of Cleveland this week that Deshaun Watson's practicing, and they're weighing potential return. What do you think about that? What's your take on that whole thing?
My take is if you look at what his cap hit is next year, it's pretty clear that they don't have a choice but to try and figure out if they can get him to play next year. So actually in this lost season, if you can get 2 games out of them or 3 games here at the end of the year, whatever it's going to be, to at least kind of have an idea of what you're looking at, I think it's smart, actually. Believe it or not, the contract they signed him to is the worst in the history, and obviously there's nothing they can do about that, but I think it's actually pretty smart.
Okay.
All right, very good. Let's go to our third game. Miami at the Jets, the surging Dolphins, if you will, against a combined 8 wins between these two teams, but Miami has played well, and they are 2.5-point favorites on the road. Mr. Zeiss.
I have to look at it historically, but I'm pretty sure this is one of those games. This is one of those things where the home team wins a lot. I'd have to look at it always over the course of time, but it feels like it's one of those every time one team plays in the other stadium. So I'm going to say that the Jets. I'm going to take the 2.5. This might actually be the one where I use that whole the wrong team's favored. Don't need the 2.5. Don't want the 2.5. Don't give me the 2.5. I like the Jets to win.
I'm with you. I take the point. I don't even think they need it myself. They win this game outright. What a kiss of death that is for both of us. All right. The best game on the 1 o'clock slate. Cincinnati, 4-8 against 8-4 Buffalo. Joe Burrow on the road as a dog of 3 or more. 14-3 against the number, Paul. How do you feel about this game?
6 is a lot. I know that everybody's high on the Bengals because of what they did last week. I still think their defense stinks. I think the Bills are at home. I think the Bills got, they found a little formula. I think the Bills win, cover the 6, and bury the Bengals forever.
Very possible. I love the over in this game. I have to look at the weather. I don't see much wind, so that's a good thing. I'm not sure. Oh, you're texting me something here. All right, we'll get to him in just a few moments. I'm taking the 6 points. I don't care. I see these things online, and I'm always chasing it, and then, of course, it goes the other way. Last game, Steelers and Ravens. Right now, looking at the books, this is a bet. These are all from BetMGM, by the way. Baltimore now 6, -6. This game opened at 6. It was down to 5.5. I see it back at 6 at 5.5. We'll say 6 at this point in time. How do you feel about the Ravens and Steelers today?
Boy. I think these games always come down to, field goals, usually, don't they? I mean, they're always pretty close.
Yep.
I mean, just my gut tells me I'm taking the Steelers plus the 6. I don't know who's going to win the game, but 6 is a lot of points in this game, and I know last time they played, the Ravens pretty much bludgeoned them. But I'm telling you, Lamar Jackson is not Lamar Jackson right now. And if he's not Lamar Jackson where he can run and do all the stuff he does, this team is a lot less scary than normal.
19 of the last 38 have ended in 3-point games, by the way. Right. 19 of 38. I'm taking the 6 as well. I'll reserve judgment on whether the Steelers win or lose later on. Paul Zeiss of the Post-Gazette, you're the best. I thank you very much, sir. Good talking with you as always.
All right. Anytime, buddy.
Thank you.
Anytime. We'll see.
All right. Paul Zeiss. Love having him on each week. His commitment to the show has been critical to our success. Again, 4 hours of me, and there'll be a riot squad up here. 4 hours of people like Paul Zeiss and Don Haley, Mike Ostie. We've got a great 11 o'clock hour coming up. I will tell you about the 11 o'clock hour in a few moments. I do want to remind you we are live at the North Park Lounge, Richland, Hilltop Event Center, where we are for every Steelers game. 4 hours prior to kickoff, and then about a 1 hour post-game show. John Fedko and Jerry DePaula join us for that. But our 11 o'clock hour is staring us in the face. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. I do want to tell you that since the beginning of this show, not only has the North Park Lounge Richland been in our corner, so has Arch Masonry and Restoration. They are hiring brick masons, block masons, concrete finishers, and construction labor help. If you're in those fields and your business has slowed down, if you're out of work and you're looking for it, call Arch Masonry today, 412-564-5733, or visit their website, archmasonryinc.com. If you have no experience and you're looking to get into the building trades, great. They can help jumpstart your career by getting you on-the-job training and advancement programs and classes that will teach you a trade, laying brick and block, finishing concrete, things of that nature, restoration work as well. 412-564-5733, archmasonryinc.com. And as I should say, still up here at North Park Lounge Richland on Saturdays and Sundays through the end of the season, you can bring the kids up to meet Santa. Santa and Mrs. Claus are hanging out here every Saturday and Sunday. They've got a nice buffet. You can come up here and eat, enjoy your time. Of course, stick around for the Steelers game. Bill and I are here hanging out. We're going to toy around with some live chat stuff here. If not this week, I think we might do it for the Monday night game where we just hang out on our socials and chat along and watch the game with you. We'll see how that plays out. But we do appreciate everybody, checking us out on our live feeds. Again, we are live on X, YouTube, and Facebook for every Steelers game for the remainder of the season, and including hopefully a playoff run. We'll see how this all plays out. Obviously, a key component to that is going to be how the Steelers play today. We'll get into predictions in just a few moments. In our 11 o'clock hour, we've got a bunch of guests coming up, including Zig Fracassi, our Sirius XM's NFL insider, is going to be popping on. Let's just bring Zig on right now while we're at it. He's been sitting on hold for a few minutes. We've got Sion Nijad of CBS Sportsline and Ed Bouchette, longtime writer for the Post-Gazette. But before we get to them, we're going to talk to Zig. Good morning, Mr. Fracassi. How are you, sir?
JP, always doing well, my friend. How you doing?
I'm okay. Anthony Halkias will be joining us at 11:45. So we have a full hour of guests taking us into kickoff of Steelers and Ravens. All right, Zig, pretty interesting week here in Pittsburgh. Steeler Nation besides themselves, to say the least. Not a good finish, obviously, in the back half of that last 30 minutes against Baltimore. The Steelers looked terrible. The first play of the second. I'm sorry, against Buffalo. Thank you very much. Yeah, they just looked terrible. They looked awful and just got pelted in the second half. They got bludgeoned by James, by Mr. Cook, and then of course, Josh Allen setting the touchdown rushing record for quarterbacks in the process of everything. They just got beat 27-6, and then the fallout afterwards. They booed Renegade, Zig. I don't know if you know about Renegade, but the fans booed Renegade, for crying out loud. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, when that happens, you're in a lot of trouble. And it is amazing just how quick that game turned, JP. It was the Steelers up at the half, and then obviously you had the sack by Bosa, which led to the scoop and score by, with the defensive back there, Benford, who I interviewed after the game, and he just said that it was one of those things where he was going to go into the coverage, but then when he saw the sack, he stepped it up real fast to obviously cover the play and then get the fumble return for the touchdown. And then he's responsible on the next series for the pick. That got cashed in on the Coleman touchdown. So basically, he was responsible for like 14 points in not even, 3 to 4 minutes of actual game time. So it's just amazing how it went to hell in the handbasket. And it was interesting, JP, reading, may have been Syracuse.com or one of those posts after the game, and they asked James Cook what the key was to the game. He said, actually, the fact that the Steelers' corners tackle very poorly. Once we knew we got past that second level, we had to make those guys tackle who weren't notoriously good tacklers. So I thought that was a pretty interesting piece as to why they ultimately had success against that Steelers' run defense.
Look, according to some, they almost ran the same play a whole bunch of times. Now, I didn't look at all of those particular formations. I don't want to speak on behalf of that. I don't know what you saw, but according to several people, they ran out of almost the same formation and slight variances, but not nearly that much, and the Steelers just could not stop.
They couldn't stop it, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly for
and they
sure.
were down their 2 starting tackles, too.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. I mean, both starting tackles were out. They had some missing pieces defensively, but everybody at this time of year has issues with injuries. But yeah, specifically the tackles, and they look like they were pulling for OJ back in the '70s, for crying out loud. That's how big the holes were. They ended up setting a record. For a visiting team, most rushing yards in the building's 24-year history, to put the cherry on top of the Sunday for Bills Mafia.
Well, and you want to know the irony of that, JP, and it's funny you mentioned OJ. The all-time record against the Steelers in Pittsburgh was 50 years earlier at Three Rivers when OJ and company ran for 300-plus yards against the Steel Curtain in a 31-21 Bills when I was like 10 years old. I remember watching that game. It was ridiculous.
I only remember San Francisco OJ.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I remember seeing him on I'm almost certain it was a Monday night game, and he was at the end. It was the end of his career. Yeah, it was obviously at the end of his career. All right, we've got Zig Fracassi, our NFL insider from SiriusXM's NFL Radio, joining us here on Steel City Sunday, live from the North Park Lounge, Richland, Hilltop Event Center. Zig will be with us for another 10, 12 minutes, and then we will move on to our next guest. Let's talk a little bit about the Bills and Cincinnati Bengals today. As crazy as it sounds, at 4-8, there's the talk this week is that the Bengals are still in the thick of things in the AFC North. They have to run the gauntlet.
Absolutely.
I mean, 8-9 probably does not win the division, although there has been talk of that. I don't see that being the case. I think somebody's going to come out of this division with 9 wins. It's possible. I know you talked a little bit about flurries and 10, 12 mile per hour winds at Rich Stadium. How do you feel about the game today? Buffalo, a 6-point favorite, and at 8-4, still trying to chase an 11-win New England Patriots team for first place in the AFC East.
Yeah, this is going to be a tricky game, I think. I wouldn't be stunned at all if Cincinnati wins because the stats bear this out. It's interesting that the 2 teams that have won the most games in December and January recently, JP, are Cincinnati and Buffalo. So these teams do know how to win when the calendar turns for the last month or two of the season. And what is it? Cincinnati's won 8 straight games that Joe Burrow has started. And you could just tell that they flow differently on Thanksgiving night against Baltimore. Even though he was missing on his secondary receivers, watching Burrow to chase is a real treat. You can just see it. It's like watching practice on the field. The corner routes, the deep goes, the deep middles, whatever the case is, JP, it's a real treat to watch. And believe it or not, I think Cincinnati's defense has gotten incrementally better the last few weeks. Now they're going to be without Hendrickson once again, whereas Buffalo, Kincaid's probably going to be a game-time decision. Bosa, who had been playing well, he got hurt in the game last week against Pittsburgh. This could be problematic. Does Buffalo have a little bit of a letdown? I suppose it's entirely possible. I wouldn't put it past the Bengals to win this game today in Orchard Park. I
think if the winds keep themselves modest, I mean, the winds were 35 miles per hour in Pittsburgh on Sunday, and that reflected, I think, it reflected in the passing stats. I don't think there's any question to that. 10, 12 miles an hour, not too bad. If it picks up a little bit more, could have some more impact on the passing game. But I agree with you. I mean, look, this total's 53 right now, or 53 and a half. And again, the Bengals defense, not very good. Buffalo's run defense, not very good. We'll see how things play out. But I think it does certainly have the reflections of looking as a shootout. I want to flip back to the Steelers real quick. Marquez Valdes-Scantling has been upgraded to the 53-man roster. Adam Thielen picked up off of waivers by the black and gold. Cedric Wilson has been a disappointment this year. They really had no number 2 to coming in. Can either of these two guys provide a spark for the Steelers' tepid passing game?
I love that word, and it's pretty accurate too. I suppose anytime you've got the familiarity there, MVS obviously with Aaron from their time in Green Bay, I suppose they could do some basic routes there. Adam Thielen, I got to tell you, JP, he was traded back to Minnesota from Carolina. The irony of that is the Panthers now are in contention in their division, and the Vikings fell off the face of the earth. And to me, he, instead of looking like the Adam Thielen of old, he looked like more of the old Adam Thielen is old. I mean, too many drop passes, maybe lack of focus, maybe because the team wasn't doing so well. So I don't know. Does he find a fountain of youth or glory here playing with Aaron? Maybe he does, but to me, JP, this is just one of those things that if you're a team trying to hang on, trying to stay alive in contention, these are these type of moves that you do. So I'm not sure it's going to be seismic. I suppose there'll be some contribution, but I wouldn't look for 12 catches today from either one.
Bill Aiken's going to jump in here with a question. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Zig.
Bill, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, my friend.
So I asked Coach Todd Haley this, and I'm going to ask you. This offense hasn't connected on a 20-plus pass since Week 8 against the Packers.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
Wow.
I know. It's staggering. I know. It's shocked me as well. Obviously the talk about the big play option today is, DK Metcalf. When you look at it, his first 7 games, 31, he caught passes of 31, 80, 25, 39, and 24, but nothing longer than 19 yards in the last 5 games.
Okay.
They need an offensive spark. Last week, it was a very low season low of 166 total yards. What do they got to do to get this going, Sig?
That is a great question. And they immediately, Bill, the first thing that comes to mind is either DK not focused enough in the meetings? Is it, something that they, I heard about that little fiasco last week with Rodgers with the comments, and then I guess there was a little backtracking. Could it be some locker room dissension? Or could it be Metcalf is playing with something? This may be one of these things. You know how you hear guys like after the season that Joe Blow was playing with, partially torn ACL or whatever it is. I'm not saying that there's an injury, but maybe there is. He could be playing with something. Could be a disconnect with Aaron Rodgers at this particular point. It could be a whole multitude of things, but I agree with you because teams and defenses can definitely live off the fact that if you could shut down the intermediate routes, they're not going to. In other words, if Baltimore knows that Pittsburgh's not going deep with that tendency, that stat you just brought up, why would they fear, having to be burnt deep? So I think that helps the defense in their preparation too. So again, this could be either a disconnect or an injury, Bill, that maybe none of us know about.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I want to kind of just switch gears here.
Sure.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
6-6.
Yeah.
In the 9th spot right now in the playoff chase.
Right.
I mean, could we are we going to see Pat Mahomes on the sidelines for the playoffs this year? Is that a realistic possibility right now?
Well, their game tonight, JP, is no gift because don't look now, but the Texans are smoking.
Yeah, they're hot.
They've won 4 straight games. And as we know, they've had, to me, they have the best defense in football. I mean, they get after it, obviously. I love their corners with Stingley and Lassiter. They may have the best pair of rush ends in Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. Their linebackers with Azazir and Tuoto, they're very good too. So I wouldn't be stunned if Houston goes into Arrowhead and wins that game. As far as Kansas City is concerned, we were doing the breakdown on this yesterday on the show. Way too many penalties. In fact, also return yards has been a problem against them. And the fact is, too, the lack of a consistent ground game. Now Simmons, the first-round pick who had missed a lot of time this year, he's out again, so he's going to miss the next 4 games as he's on injured reserve. All these things, guys, have worked against the Chiefs. Mahomes actually has had, I think, one of his better years up until recently, but now you wonder if age is setting in. And the reality is teams get old, and like we talked about before, maybe I didn't bring this stat up on this show, but if you look at it in the Mahomes era, they have played 21 playoff games, which if you look is equivalent to an extra season and a quarter. That is a lot of football. They could simply be spent at this point.
Well, spent is a good possibility, but the other component is, the revolving door of the players that they do certainly lose over the course of time. I mean, Kareem Hunt's only got 500 yards rushing this year. I think, and that doesn't help. Obviously, you need a running game in the NFL to balance out things for sure. Patrick Mahomes is second in rushing for them, for crying out loud.
That's bad.
Yeah, it is bad. I know that, especially at his at this stage in his career, right? He should not be, second in rushing. It should be less. And look, Travis Kelce, he's had a Hall of Fame career. He leads them in receiving, but their top wideout has under 500 yards catching. I mean, they have 3 wideouts that have 400 yards receiving, but that's not enough. No. You need a wide receiver, to have more in terms of production. And he's had a good year throwing the football. He's got 22 touchdown passes, but you're right. An extra season and a half of football over the last 7-8 years while they've been the dominant force could be taking its toll. Zig Fracassi joining us here, of course, our NFL insider from SiriusXM's NFL Radio. A couple of ugly games on the schedule, maybe the ugliest being Tennessee and Cleveland.
Oh, boy. Hold me down.
Yeah, with a combined 4 wins. Thoughts on Shedeur Sanders so far? I know, he was in Las Vegas and, he won that game, and a lot was made about the clip that they clipped at the very end of a 3-minute interview, I might add. It was not – look, in this day and age of, like, the 10-second soundbite, the 15-second, it's a gotcha thing, right?
Exactly.
Like, when I saw that, I was, my reaction was, but then I thought to myself, how long was that interview? And you go back and that interview was 3 minutes, and he was praising everybody. He took the last 15 seconds to showboat, if you will. That's fine. I got no problem with that. Right. Obviously, he came back to earth last week. Do you anticipate him running the season out at quarterback barring injury?
It's a great question. I would have to say so at this point because we don't know if, obviously Gabriel is going to make it back from concussion. I know this week Deshaun Watson was actually at practice, and I do see that he's actually going to return in 2026. Now, that opens up another can of worms because I think his cap hit would be like $10 billion or whatever the case is. So that would be an interesting scenario. But, yeah, I'm going to look – you know what? Part of me, though, JP, actually looks forward to this because you not only got Shedeur, but then you've also got Cam Ward on the other side. So 2 rookie quarterbacks going at it. I know it was ironic yesterday. Brad Hopkins was filling in for Todd Haley yesterday on the show. And I go, I bet this matchup brings back memories for him since B-Hop played with the Houston Oilers, the Cleveland Browns. It says, probably trying to defend Michael Dean Perry and Clay Matthews and all those guys. He's like, oh, geez, you had to remind me about that. But, ugly game. But you know what? Sometimes, John, the ugly games actually turn out to be very, very interesting. So this one could be one of those sneaky good 27-24 type entertaining games.
Well, Zig, too, you talk about Deshaun Watson. He had his 21-day practice window opened,
right,
working his way back from that Achilles injury. The season's basically for them is a throwaway season at this point in time. Mm-hmm. Would it be crazy to see him maybe, play a couple games this year just to see what they have? I mean, a game, maybe 2 games. I don't know. And is that crazy to think that, or?
You know what, Bill? I would have to look at their remaining schedule to see what they have, because my point would be with the Cleveland Browns, if they're playing at home, especially in the Northeast, late December, early January. Let's see. In fact, they've got they're at Cincinnati. Or they actually got Pittsburgh coming up. So Pittsburgh at Cincinnati, at Carolina, at Philly, against the Rams. So potentially you're playing in bad weather in each one of those scenarios. My guess would be they just err on the side of caution and start over in 2026, because gosh forbid you want to. He retore the original Achilles,
right,
getting ready for the season. God forbid. I don't know if they want to risk that once again. So long answer to your question, Bill. I would say no at this point.
All right, Zig, before we let you go, quick prediction on Steelers and Ravens today.
Ooh, good one. How about this stat, JP? Since these teams have met when the Ravens moved to Baltimore in 1996, 40 one-possession games. So you know how close this is going to be. I think this one comes down to the wire. I think in the end, even though Lamar doesn't look the same, I think Derrick Henry turns to be the difference. I'll say Ravens 21-17.
Zig Fracassi, our NFL insider from SiriusXM's NFL Radio. He joins us every week. Zig, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
JP,
Thanks,
Bill,
Zig.
good to be with you guys.
All right, as always, Zig Fracassi, 30-plus year veteran of Sports Talk Radio, and, of course, the last 22 years on SiriusXM's NFL Radio. You can listen to him tonight on Channel 82. He's usually on after the Sunday night game. All right. Let's bring in our next guest. I'm excited to bring on Siat Nejad, who is a host and analyst for CBS Sportsline, CBS Sports HQ at Fantasy Football Today, but that's not the most interesting thing about him. He cashed in the World Series of Poker. What year was that, by the way? Siat, thanks for joining me, by the way. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. And you guys have been going for 2 hours already. I love the energy. Your guests have been amazing. Thanks for having me on as well. It was 2018. It was the first and only time I played the World Series of Poker main event. It was just one of those, classic cliche bucket list things. I've been playing poker really since the moneymaker days, where everybody got into poker in the early 2000s. And long story short, I had a bad day one. I was really left with I think 15,000 chips out of the 50 that you're allotted. Day two, I came back with a whole different table image. I took advantage of some bad players at my table and, really did well day two, got into day three and made it to day four. So I cashed, finished right around I think it was 7,800 and change. I finished right around 1,000. So it doesn't sound super impressive, but I made the money and that's all that matters to me.
So a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I used to work and live in Las Vegas. This is back in the mid-'90s. I got to cover the 95 World Series of Poker. I got to play in a few of the events, one of the media events, and that was the year Dan Harrington won. I don't know if you know this or not. We'll talk football in a minute, but I want to share this with you since you're a degenerate gambler and you obviously like to play poker, that's great. That's in line with me. I was at the Rivers Poker Room for a little bit last night, taking some shot at some money. That was the year. It was the silver anniversary of the event. And Jack Binion, who was running the place at the time, the winner got their weight in silver, and Harrington was over 300 pounds. They didn't have enough silver to put on the scale. There's a famous picture, I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, where they had a big giant scale, and Harrington was standing on it, and all the silver that they had was up in the air. They didn't have enough silver to match his weight at that time, which was always something that I thought was interesting about that story. That's the great state of poker. You know what I mean?
I gotta find that image. That's kind of hilarious.
Hey, appreciate you coming on board. So let's talk about the NFL. You've been working for CBS Sportsline for a little while now. I want to just get your thoughts on the state of the NFL to begin with, before we dive into a little Steelers and Ravens and some other games. Just your thoughts on the product that you see right now from the National Football League.
That's a really good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question. The truth is, to me, the NFL is. and I don't think I'm breaking any news here. It's just the cream of the crop when it comes to sports. For whatever reason, people are drawn to the NFL more than, in my opinion, any other sport in terms of the passion, the fervor behind it. I'm absolutely the same way growing up as a Redskins Commanders fan. I mean, I was never more passionate about football than I was really any other sport. With that said, I mean, listen, that you can make your complaints about the NFL here and there. I mean, just it feels like every other game, or at least every other primetime game, there's officiating concerns. There's a replay assist. Maybe we can improve upon that. There's like little things and little tweaks we can make. Obviously, there's injury concerns when it comes to the NFL, which frankly, nobody can control as these players get bigger and faster and stronger. I mean, that's just something that we're going to have to endure as fans, and that they'll have to endure as players. But I don't really think there's any sort of tragic flaw with the NFL. I think it continues to grow. I think fans continue to jump on board. So I think if we're rating this from like a 1 to 10, I think the NFL has been kind of staying at a 9 for notwithstanding the complaints you can make for the last, honestly, 10, 20, 30 years.
Okay, fair. You mentioned officiating. Should the league have full-time NFL officials?
Yes. I mean, where are we on this? Like, I actually can't believe it. When I first learned, I think it was Ed Hockley. So we're talking about the father here. When I first learned that, by the way, I'm an attorney as well. I practiced law for 13 years. I do this analysis stuff now. I only bring that up because when I found out that Ed Hockley was, this is back in the day, right, that he was a lawyer and that he was kind of like part-timing NFL, it occurred to me in that moment, which was 15 years ago or so, I was like, oh, I just assumed these guys were full-time. This is an incredible NFL product that there's billions of dollars at stake, and with ownership and all of those things. How do we not have full-time NFL referees? I do think that's part of the problem. However, I will say that if you make these guys and girls full-time, it's not going to solve all the problems just because they're full-time. This is a very hard game to judge. I do think replay assist needs to step in a little bit more because it's so fast and it's so decisive, though.
I agree with you. I mean, I've been an advocate for them being full-time for quite some time now, especially as you mentioned, the game is getting faster. The athletes are just that much bigger. The speed of the game is just so quick that it's hard in those moments to make these decisions. And if you're not in that sphere of your job 24/7, it becomes that much harder. And you see you see players talking about it all the time, especially with the personal foul shots. These guys are moving so quickly. I forget who it was a couple of years ago. One of the Steelers players was talking about a hit. He complained that if the quarterback had made a better throw, the receiver wouldn't have done what he did because he's trying to hit the receiver at a certain spot. Receiver has to adjust to a bad throw. It becomes a targeting 15-yard penalty. Yeah. Things of that nature might work themselves out if the officials were full-time and weren't going somewhere on Monday, Sunday when the game's over, they're on a plane going somewhere else to do their day job. Hard to really balance those two. I think I think it's fair, and who knows where the push will come from. I would think that it would come from ownership. I would think, I don't know how you feel about that, but it's got to be the owners, I think, that are going to drive something like that. Or, because the commissioner doesn't seem to be interested in moving on that subject.
The commissioner is interested in whatever the owners are interested in. I mean, the commissioner, like, for those that don't understand what the responsibility of the commissioner is, he is at the behest of the owners. So when you have these owners meetings in May, I believe, every year, in the off season, that's when the owners decide, and that's when you get an idea of what's important to the owners and what's important to the NFL. And the commissioner is just basically a vehicle to drive what, and that's not a bad thing. It's not like it's sinister, but I mean, the owners are making these decisions as to what's important and what's not. I guess the question becomes, like, are the owners in the best position to make that determination? Is there a little bit of bias at play? I mean, that's a road we can go down in terms of, having an hour-long show in terms of like why or why not they're interested in certain things. But yeah, I mean, there's fixable things. We just saw it on the last primetime game. I mean, there were some like ridiculous calls that I think could have been solved if you had maybe better officiating, but also replay assist, just jumping in real quick and saying, no, that didn't happen like you thought it did. We just wasted only 5 seconds of your time, but we got the play right.
Sian Najad joining us here on our Steel City Sunday pregame show, live from the North Park Lounge, Richland Hilltop Event Center. He, of course, works for CBS Sportsline, does a bunch of shows, fantasy football show as well. You can go check him out on X as well. Let's get into the Steelers game. I mean, this is bad for both teams. 6-6. You know, the Ravens had come in with a 5-game winning streak. They lost last week. Steelers have just been a yo-yo for quite some time now. Your thoughts on what you see from 30,000 feet on both teams? Let's start with Pittsburgh first, please.
What's interesting about Pittsburgh is, I don't know what your expectations were coming into the season, but if you had said that that Pittsburgh would still be fighting for the top seed in their division in Week 14, I think you'd be like, okay, I'm okay with that reality, given that the Ravens were supposed to explode and obviously Burrow got injured, but everybody thought the Bengals were going to be a force, and maybe we see Pittsburgh as a 3 seed, in most people's scenarios. The problem with Pittsburgh is I don't think when they come to town, if you're Baltimore or when you're going to Pittsburgh, I don't think there's anything specifically right now you're afraid of. We know historically, and listen, you can speak to this better than me. So forgive me if I'm out of line here, but this Pittsburgh defense isn't as vaunted as historically a Pittsburgh defense is. And then the real problem is on offense. I don't know how people feel in Pittsburgh about Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is a fine quarterback in this day and age at 42 years old. By the way, if you want to play a birthday narrative, his birthday, you might have already mentioned 5 days ago. What are you pointing out? Oh, okay. I thought that was to me. So yeah, I thought you were showing me something.
I'm sorry. I think we've lost our X feed. I'm sorry, CR. Go right ahead. Continue, please, sir.
No, that's okay. So I don't have a huge problem with Aaron Rodgers, but if you're going to take George Pickens away from this team, and I don't think George Pickens is some amazing, great wide receiver one necessarily, he has not been afforded the weapons that I think, if you want Aaron Rodgers to succeed, I just think you got to do better in terms of giving him a wide receiver room that's a little bit more, just a little bit better than it is right now. So, I mean, I think this Pittsburgh team is very middle of the road. I think even if they sneak into the playoffs, I don't see a scenario where all of a sudden they're this vaunted team that people are really afraid of. It seems like a first-round exit to me. I hope I'm wrong. I like Pittsburgh. I like Aaron Rodgers. I like the story of Aaron Rodgers. I know people don't like him really for the most part, at least outside of Pittsburgh, maybe, or outside of Green Bay. But I think this Pittsburgh team could be really exciting if we see Aaron Rodgers go deep into the playoffs. I'm just not seeing it right now.
Yeah, and to speak on Rodgers just for a few moments, look, what he did in Green Bay, cements his legacy, right? Mm-hmm. 4 MVPs, went to a Super Bowl and won, did all of that. They didn't get back. I know that was obviously something that stuck in the minds of a lot of fans and could be divisive, if you will, in a locker room. I have no problem with a quarterback who takes responsibility for his mistakes, but also dishes it out and looks for accountability. Some people say that shouldn't be public, right? That should be behind the scenes. With social media and the way things are today, everybody's got a camera. They stick it in your face. You say something, it's on. It gets everywhere. And then the next thing you know, it's Aaron Rodgers is a bad teammate. I think that might be a little bit more overblown than it has been in the past. I want to get into John Harbaugh. He's a year behind Tomlin in terms of his career. They've had very similar careers in terms of Super Bowl appearances, what they've won, and how they've struggled, right? They get Lamar Jackson, 3 MVPs, but nothing to show for it in terms of a Super Bowl appearance. Where do you see John Harbaugh right now in the grand scheme of things? There's a lot of, obviously, noise here in Pittsburgh about Mike Tomlin. We can maybe talk about that in a moment, but where do you see John Harbaugh in all of this right now?
I think the problem with John Harbaugh is, you're in an era, at least towards the latter stage of his coaching career, where you got to deal with guys like Josh Allen. You got to deal with guys like Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And I'm not comparing Patrick Mahomes to Michael Jordan, but let's go back to the mid-90s. How many legacies, whether it was coaches or great players, how many legacies were basically diminished or destroyed by Michael Jordan? I mean, there were so many, and obviously he left for 2 years, and the Rockets and Hakeem Olajuwon, and they won a couple of years in a row. But when you have guys like Josh Allen, but more specifically Patrick Mahomes, that are just kind of ruling things in the AFC, it's really hard for you as second fiddle to solidify your legacy. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with John Harbaugh. I don't have a problem with Lamar Jackson. But if it's Lamar Jackson in a game against Patrick Mahomes, I think we all know who we're taking. So it's
right.
not necessarily a knock on Lamar Jackson as much as it is, hey, man, wrong era. Sorry about that. But like, we've got Patrick Mahomes here. And I think that's the fundamental problem. When we don't apply context to what's going on, we're going to say, oh, this person's a failure, or this coach or this team is a failure. Well, the reality is they would have been a huge success if not for this one person, this one team.
Now, I know you do a fantasy show. Are you involved in any of the betting shows on CBS?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what you like in terms of maybe a prop bet. Are you big on the props? Do you like
I do a prop show every Friday, and then my morning show I usually integrate some props as well.
What is there a particular prop? Doesn't have to be a Steelers game, but I just from a degenerate standpoint, I'm always curious to hear what people like yourself have to say. Is there a particular prop that you see an advantage where you can get some closing line value, as the kids like to say?
Yeah, so a couple of props I put in on Friday, I'll just mention here. First of all, and this line has moved just a little bit. Chris Rodriguez, the running back for obviously the Washington Commanders. Early in the season, we thought it was going to be Jacory Krosky-Merritt. It looks like Chris Rodriguez has sort of solidified himself as the guy. Certainly 3 out of the last 4 games, 11-plus carries. And again, 3 out of the last 4. You play Minnesota. Jaden Daniels is back. I mean, J.J. McCarthy on the other side. I say all that context to say this is probably going to be a pretty close game, neutral game script, maybe even a positive game script for Washington. I think Chris Rodriguez gets enough carries to get over his 10.5 carry prop. It is 11.5 in some places, but I still like it there. I think we're looking at Chris Rodriguez getting 12-plus rushing attempts. If you want to take the yards, I do respect this Minnesota defense, but I do think with Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, like everybody's healthy for once, I do think we're going to see some holes. So if you wanted to take his yardage, and I'm talking about Chris Rodriguez, I think in the low 40s, you're probably okay with that. High 30s, low 40s. But I'm just going to go with his rush attempts because it's not that I think it's going to be a conservative game plan. They're just going to run the ball all the time. I just think this is going to be a neutral game script, and Chris Rodriguez is that north-south runner for Washington.
One last question before I let you go. How do you see today's Ravens-Steelers game?
I like the under. I don't see a ton of points in this one. Both these offenses have been a little lackluster. It's a division game. I'm seeing 5.5 points, and obviously we know about Lamar, and he's not playing super well. Doesn't seem super confident. I think your last guest might have said a similar thing. I expect the Ravens to win the game in like a 3-point, 4-point game, but I don't think I'd be laying 5.5 points given the state of the Baltimore Ravens right now.
Sion Najad joining us from CBS Sportsline. I hope I was saying that right. I can't thank you enough. You're great. My favorite app, and I'm not just saying this to you, is my CBS Sports app. I absolutely love the layout. I've been using it's my go-to app for years. I love everything about it. And I worked for CBS Radio for 6 years. I will say that as well. So I'm a little partial to the eye. Thank you so much for coming on our pregame show. It's really appreciated. We thank you and enjoy your Sunday, sir.
Back at you. I enjoyed coming on. I'll come on again anytime you need me.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Sion Najad from CBS Sports, joining us live. Nice of him to come on our show. We move quickly here. Before I get to Ed Bouchette, excited to bring Ed on. I want to tell you that we are sponsored in part by North Park Lounge Richland, Hilltop Event Center, where you can meet Santa Claus all the weekends through the remainder of the year, starting at 9 a.m. A breakfast buffet. Santa's here, Mrs. Claus. Bring the kids. Tons of families in here right now. And, of course, a great place to watch the Steelers game. We're also brought to you in part by Arch Masonry and Restoration. They're looking for bricklayers, block layers. They're looking for concrete finishers. 412-564-5733. ArchMasonryInc.com to learn more. It is my pleasure to introduce next on this show a man who covered the Steelers for a long, long time, the pride of IUP, and somebody who I shared some time with a long time ago on Ardmore Boulevard, longtime beat writer of the Steelers for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Mr. Ed Bouchette, joining us here on Steel City Sunday. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good, John. Thank you.
Yeah,
just sitting in my easy chair here, waiting for the game.
There you go. I was talking about the lineup back in the late 90s. Not that I include myself in it, but you, Bill Hillgrove, Myron, Doug Hirth. This is going back to like 97, 98 when I was Tom McMillan. Tom McMillan back there in the mid
And then
'90s.
Jerry Dulac.
Jerry played a role over there for a little while as well. There were some heavy hitters over there back in the '90s. That's for sure.
Bruce Cotton.
Bruce, I produced his show over in '94 and '95 over on Semple Street. He was. I talked about him earlier in the year. You worked with him. He ran Dapper Dan Charities
He hired
for
me, John.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
Did he really?
Yep.
God, he was. I will say that, and I'm dabbling in print right now, writing for the Trib, but I had a good time covering the Riverhounds this year. It was really enjoyable. Him and my time with Sam Nover, most enjoyable parts of my career. I mean, I worked, obviously with, a lot of good people, yourself and some others, but Bruce taught me a lot. He was hard. Like he was a hammer
lot too.
Yeah, he was a hammer. But I understood why as I got older and into the career further. Why? Because it mattered. Being right mattered. It was a lot of people want to be first, but Bruce was really about being right about things, and I learned a lot from him. That's an interesting tidbit. I didn't know that he had actually hired you over at the PG. So you're not covering the team anymore. You're relaxing and enjoying yourself. Thoughts on this current version of the Steelers, sir? What do you think after 12 games?
It's hard to think a whole lot about them, John. They've been all over the map. They upset some good teams. They caught the Patriots at the right time, that's for sure. And they lost to some teams they probably shouldn't have lost to. But I don't think they're going anywhere, that's for sure. I don't think they're going to win a division. It's the only way they're going to make the playoffs. Right now, I think they're 8-9. 9-8 is probably what they're going to finish with. They got Cleveland at Cleveland. That's not going to be a gimme. I think Miami at home on a Monday night will be. And if they could come up with a split on this, there's 2 games with the Ravens, that's probably the best they can do. I don't know. It's just as the year went on, they've gotten worse, which is kind of how they've treated the last several years.
Yeah, unfortunately, and they've got a game against Detroit on the road that's not going to be easy as well.
I forgot about that
right.
one, John.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks down the road, but yeah, that's sandwiched in there as well for them. So yeah, getting to 9 wins is going to be a tall task. Is this the hottest it's ever been for Mike Tomlin? I think it is. Just want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, he had to overcome an 0-4 start. What was that? 2012 or 13 when they lost in London to Minnesota.
Yes.
I that's as low as I've seen him. I mean, he was sitting on a stool in a locker room after that game in London and looked up at me and says, "How are you doing, Ed?" It's the only time I've ever seen that where he was in a locker room and just BSing with a reporter. Never after a game. I mean, especially after a loss, you know what I mean? That's the only time. So he's been down before. He's never been out, everybody knows that. He's never been out. But this year just seems there's so many holes as this season's gone on that have opened. We all knew about quarterback. After this year, they're going to need another quarterback, and I don't know where they're going to get them. Their defense is just falling apart. I mean, they signed that Slay kid for $10 million, and now they cut him.
Yeah,
it's just one thing after another with that defense. Next year, what are they going to do? Cam coming back? Is he going to be able to do it again? TJ doesn't seem to be as good as he was a couple years ago. And they gave him all that money, so he'll be around. I just don't, the corners aren't very good. They're paying that safety a lot of money to do what? I don't know. I just don't think they're a very good team right now.
Yeah, they've definitely struggled. And it's funny you mentioned Tomlin. He had to have respected you to speak to you because he has a bit of a disdain for the media in some capacity. I'm trying to be polite and politically correct here. I will say this. You talked about maybe a low point that you saw for him. we had that post game presser on our post game show with Jerry DePaula and John Fedko for the Indianapolis win. He looked relieved. Like, I haven't seen Tomlin look like that in a long. I don't know if ever. Like, the nonverbal was what really spoke to me. It wasn't so much what he was saying, but just the look on his face. It's on YouTube. The Steelers have a YouTube channel. I'll just never forget that. We actually grabbed that for our post game, and I even remarked in that post game show, I've never seen him with that kind of look of stress. It was relief. You know what I mean? But it was like a tense relief that, I can't believe we got out of here with a victory. And so, yeah, I'm sure he's feeling it just a little bit. How much of this, and let's start with the defense, how much of this problem that they're having is with the players? Because you hear a lot about scheme, right? The Steelers run the same schemes. They're easy to play against. How much of this is actually on the players? TJ Watt disappointing, Cam disappointing, Slay disappointing, Patrick Queen disappointing. How much of it is on the players wanting it more or producing more or giving more effort, do you think?
John, it's almost always on the players. I mean, you could have a terrible coach here and there, and one of the things people point to is Canada as the offensive coordinator. But most of the time, if you're not playing well, it's on the players. Unless there's stupid decisions here and there, and you can go back to maybe the decisions weren't very good when they signed some of these guys. But as far as who's playing now, I don't know. You could bring Chuck Noll back in his prime, and they would be any better. And same with Bill Cowher. I mean, or Mike Tomlin in his prime.
Right.
I just don't. I don't think you can squeeze much more out of them than what they have right now with a different approach.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Ed Bouchette, longtime writer, covering the Steelers for the Post-Gazette, joining us here on Steel City Sunday. Good morning from Ronnie Hunter on our YouTube channel. If you're commenting, we will certainly get to you and respond. Big story yesterday, Adam Schefter dropping a little nugget regarding the Mike Tomlin contract. He's got an extension through 27, but the Steelers have until March to make a decision on that. Meanwhile, Ian Rappaport this morning retorting, hey, he's coming back for 27. Look, he's going to get Noll's record. I think he's coming back next year. I personally think no matter what happens this year, he and Art will find a way to reconcile or trudge through whatever it is this season was, and he's coming back. This is his job until he does not want it. What say you?
Oh, I wouldn't say the latter, John.
Okay.
It's his job until he doesn't want it.
Okay.
And I know that the owners are different now, the president's different, but a long time ago when Chuck Noll was coach, and they were doing poorly in the late 80s, early 90s, I was in Dan Rooney's office and I was talking to him, and he said, we don't have coach for life. And he wasn't threatening Noll. He was just letting me know that he could make a change if he wanted to. And I assume it's the same with Art. I doubt it would be an out-and-out firing. It'd probably be some mutual decision. And I don't know that it's going to come to that. And I agree with you. I don't think now it'll come to it. I think Mike will be back for 26. And he is signed through 27. That's just the way it is. I mean, I would think there's got to be a whole lot of changes. And I don't know what those are. Like I said, Dan Art's dad laid down the law with Chuck Noll in 88 and again in 91, which is why after the 91 season, which is why Chuck retired. But I don't know if Art's going to do that. He's done it before. He ordered Bruce Arians out, and that happened. So we'll see.
And as this kind of plays itself out, after this season is over, say, they extend him, whatever it is, they come to some sort of agreement and he sticks around, which I believe he will. How much change on that defense could you anticipate in lieu of the draft coming here next year? And I can't see Aaron Rodgers coming back. I think he's done. Just because I think he's probably at this stage after 20 years now, he's had enough. I would think he's had enough. You've got to look towards the future. Mason Rudolph, for what it's worth, probably not a long-term solution, even though he's been in the league 8 years, 7 of those with this team. Could they package up a TJ Watt and try to move up to a high enough spot where they're in the top 5? Is there any team that might, in your mind, look at a guy who's 31, 32 at that point, carrying a $40 million salary? Could the Steelers possibly move in a direction of that nature?
Well, let me put it to you this way, John. If you're another team, why would you want to take on TJ Watt, give up something for him, and that salary? I just don't. I don't see it. Not after what he's done this year or not done. I don't see that. I'm not saying TJ Watt's washed up. I just don't think you pay that kind of money for what he's done this year, and now you add on another year, as you mentioned, 32 years old. I just don't see that. Can they move up? Yes, they can. If they want a guy, I don't think they're going to get the kid from Indiana. It looks like some teams want him at number 1. But if there's someone else, and everybody knows this quarterback class, which came in with so much hype and now has gone the other way, I don't know if there is someone else you package something for to go that high. But if you wanted to, what teams have done in the past is not just give up something you have this year, but give up something next year and beyond. I don't know if it's worth that much, though.
Yeah, Fernando Hernandez is the quarterback you're talking about from Indiana, Heisman Trophy candidate. And they did pass on Jackson Dart. They could have taken him, but they ended up taking Derek Harmon. I look at
Do we know that Jackson Dart is all he's going to be either? I mean,
right.
We're
absolutely
the Giants
right
now. Right.
Right. There's only so many Patrick Mahomes that come across in a first round. There's only so many Ben Roethlisbergers. That's right. Lamar Jacksons. You're absolutely right.
Who they passed on, by the way.
Yeah, no,
Lamar
right.
Jackson.
Hindsight, and they passed on. Yeah, no question about it. Before I let you go, sir, and I can't thank you enough for joining us on our show. We're in our first year, and we're excited where we're heading. Prediction on the game, sir. What do you think? How do you think it plays out today?
Well, what are they? 5.5-point favorites, the Ravens.
That's right. Yep.
That sounds about right to me, John. I think the Ravens are going to win. I have no idea what the score is going to be because it's just, are the Ravens going to commit 5 turnovers again?
Right.
Or are the Steelers going to give up 1,000 yards rushing today? I don't know what the score is going to be, but if I were a betting man, I would certainly put my money on the Ravens.
Ed Bouchette covered the Steelers for many years, the pride of IUP, and I can't thank you. And hey, you and I are propping up the state system schools, so I don't know if Edinburgh really wants to take me on as one of their own, even though I do hold a shingle from them. Ed, thank you. I can't thank you enough. It's good to talk with you, sir.
Asn't that that's now the
Penn West.
Penn West.
Penn West, Edinburgh. Yes.
Yeah.
As shamed as I am to admit that.
Years ago, they wanted to call IUP when they became the first university, Western Penn, and they said, no, we already have a Western Penn. It's a jail. And there goes my camera.
That's all right. Ed Bouchette, thank you. I appreciate you coming on, Ed. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Ed Bouchette, of the longtime writer from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joining us here on Steel City Sunday pregame show. We continue to roll along. So I've gotten a kick out of doing this, and if you're just joining us, I know we've got Anthony Halkias backstage. I'm going to bring him in a minute. Jerry DePaul is hanging out. We're going to get to him as well right around the 12 o'clock hour. It's been a thrill to work with all of these people again. All right. Having been in this business for 30 plus years off and on, I walked away from radio in 2016 I'm glad that I did. And now that I'm back in the capacities that I am, writing for the Trib, covering the Riverhounds, doing this show, we've got some shows that are starting this week. Mondays and Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, we debut the Pittsburgh Sports Tonight Show. I'll be hosting that 7 o'clock Mondays and Tuesdays. Of course, on Wednesdays, we have the Pittsburgh Sports Desk at 8 o'clock that Bill Akins hosts. I've been helping out there a little bit, but it's just nice to be able to reconnect with people that you spent some time with in your career, that are still around, that are still knowledgeable. Ed's a wealth of information. Jerry, who I worked with many years ago, Paul, when I was at the Post, when I was over at 93.7 The Fan, and a few others, Mike Ostie as well. Good guys. It's nice to be able to do this show, and people are watching. It's nice to have a crowd of people that are coming on board each week, discovering us. We're on all the social media sites at Steel City Sunday: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok. We broadcast live 4 hours prior to every Steelers game. If you're new to us, we are here. We've got tons of guests every week. It is not just me sitting here ranting and raving with Bill. We bring on a ton of experts, and we want their opinion, and we want you to chime in, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Facebook or X. You can send us a comment. We will read it and get to your questions as well. Without further ado, our Steeler Nation Spotlight with Anthony Halkias, lead writer of the SteelerNation.com website, joins us for our show. How you feeling this morning? You always look good, young man. I'm not even going to say that, despite your illness or whatever you're suffering from.
Yeah, no, it's my flu game, but I had to be on here today with you, John.
I appreciate it. So let's get into this. Got to be the roughest week. I mean, I've asked a number of people this roughest week that I've ever seen for Mike Tomlin. And again, not even getting into the social discourse about this, that, and the other. I'm just talking about the fact that this guy is probably rock bottom right now in terms of where he's been at as head coach. They're 6-6. They've been just disastrous since the bye week. They are 3-5, and they have just not looked good. Even a couple of the wins, the Indianapolis win was impressive. The Bengals were the Bengals, as it were, but they have really, really been just beat up and bludgeoned on the ground by most of the teams they play with, possibly again today with Derrick Henry running the football at them. What say you?
Yeah, I'm the most optimistic person in the world, and it's been so hard for me this season specifically to have any faith in this team. And for the first time ever, I really think I love Mike Tomlin so much that it would make me sad to him not to be our head coach, but it's so obvious at this point in time that he's not the answer. And he has this look in his eyes that he's had for several years now, and I call it a deer in the headlights type look. He's lacking confidence. He does not know the answer, and if he did, he would have it by now.
Right.
I think, honestly, as much as I hate to say this, I think the Ravens today beat us 24-20. I think Derrick Henry runs wild on us. I hope I'm wrong, obviously, but I have a hard time believing that Derrick Henry is not going to have 120 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I don't disagree with you. That's not a far stretch. I haven't had a chance to look at any of the lines that are more current than what I've actually seen this morning on one of my apps. I try not to get on the betting apps while I'm doing the show because I'll be 9 legs in.
Yeah,
I'll be 9 legs in, not paying attention to what Paul says or you or somebody. But what's to say that he doesn't have a big day, right? If I'm John Harbaugh and my quarterback is dinged up, I'm giving the ball to Derrick Henry 30 times.
30 times, exactly. I give him 30 times, and you're gonna win. It's that simple. We're not gonna, as much as I wish they could. This defense, it can't stop. They can't stop anybody. So Derrick Henry, I saw early in the year when Derrick Henry was having the fumble issues, and that was early when I was this Steelers team, when we see the Ravens, it's going to be different this year. Now, I hope I'm wrong. And in the past, I have been wrong. And, Tomlin does have that history of coming strong against John Harbaugh teams. So we'll see. But it just feels different. It feels it feels like Tomlin doesn't have the answer, and it feels like they're almost the locker room's ready for this season just to,
be over with.
But it can change so fast in the NFL.
Right.
That's what's so funny. There's 2 games this year that if the Steelers had just, won, if you beat the Bears and then that last one, what was that last one? But if 2 of those wins, we're talking about a completely different conversation. We might even have Mike Tomlin and Coach of the Year conversations. Like, it is so crazy how the NFL can change that quickly. But yeah.
Yeah, no, Buffalo last week. I thought the Cincinnati game was the one that really got away from them.
Cincinnati.
The Cincinnati game.
I didn't. This is my first time. This is how checked out I am. I was traveling home from New York City, and I was watching the game on my phone in the car, and the Wi-Fi was going in and out. For the first time ever, I was like, I'm good. Like, I'll watch the highlights later.
That's right.
It killed me. I've never done that, but that's how. And I'm optimistic, John.
Right. No, and that's, well, you're young. That's why. I was optimistic once too, and then reality set in for me. But that's a whole different story. I will not get into that topic at this point in time. Anthony Halkias of SteelerNation.com joining us here on our Steeler Nation Spotlight. You can go check out their website, SteelerNation.com. One of the better ones out there, the ag sites, if you will. There's several good ones. SteelerNation.com is definitely at the top of that list. Let's get into the fact that Aaron Rodgers is probably 5 games away from retirement. He's probably going to have a cast on today. The defense, for what it's worth, I'm not saying this is the Ravens defenses from a few seasons ago, but they can still get at you. Again, he's one hit away from just, like last week, he got hit. They had to take him out for a series, right? He came back in, but didn't produce anything.
That was actually when I turned the game off.
Is that right? Okay.
I was going out Rudolph through the pick.
Through the pick, and it was bad, and they had to hurry, I guess, Aaron back onto the field. What do you expect from him? I mean, he's going to have Marquez Valdez-Scantling to throw to. He's going to have Adam Thielen to throw to. A couple of, guys they picked up off the scrap heap. Scantling moved up to the regular roster for today's game. Thielen available right away. Do either of them help an old, banged-up Aaron Rodgers today?
Well, I think it obviously will help. I don't know how much, but Roman Wilson's inactive today, so we'll see. I'm excited to see if Adam Thielen, he came out and said he's confident he can run routes. Just a season ago, he was catching balls across the middle of the field. So he's 35 years old, but I guess I have confidence in him. I just don't know if these guys can get open. There hasn't been much separation all season. I've been relatively disappointed in DK Metcalf. Now I'll say this, you go pay DK Metcalf that type of money, he needs to show up in a game like today and make Aaron Rodgers' job much easier. I don't think he's made his job very easy this year. So
he has not fought hard enough at the line of scrimmage, right? Yeah. He hasn't fought hard enough to break free from, whether he's not being double teamed on every play. In fact, I've seen a little less double coverage on him because I think teams know that he may not just be giving enough effort at the line to break free or extend a route enough to give Aaron, a space to throw a ball to him. And as Ed Bouchette had mentioned, and I think this has been said before, it really does come down to the players and their effort, right? I mean, it's a fair statement. The players have to be accountable at some point in time.
Yeah. No, I agree. I have a hard time ever questioning DK Metcalf's effort per se, but I'm watching it. You know what I mean? So it's confusing to me. I always thought he was that type of player that would just, no matter what, 0 catches, 0 targets, just ball out. But
well, he caught passes of 31, 80, 25, 39, and 24 in the first 7 games, and nothing longer than 19 yards in the last 5. So.
Yeah.
Something's happened there with him. Good stats, by the way, Bill. Yeah, something has happened there with him, is sure. Just another minute or two with Anthony before we let him go. And again, I just looking at the numbers. Yeah, I mean, Calvin Austin just in 10 games he's got 26 catches. God, you mentioned Roman Wilson in 12 games, just 12 catches. So yeah, they have been a bit disappointing. Not that you should be expecting 40 or 50 catches from each of them, maybe some more production, but both have been disappointing to say the least. And look, obviously Arthur Smith favors not just Jonnu Smith, but he clearly has favored Darnell Washington more, so much that they have demoted Freiermuth, who is second on the team in yardage with a 298. Which is crazy, right? Why couldn't they move Jonnu Smith into one of those outside receiver spots and mix Freiermuth in there a little bit more? But it's been a weird season. It's been a really weird season.
That's why I say I've lost so much faith, and I don't have any optimism because it's just like you're saying. It sounds too obvious. Why are they not doing it? They must just not know how. So.
Right. Fair enough. All right, one last question before I let you go, young man, and thank you for sending me the parlay of the century via text. I will be looking at that here in a few minutes. Prediction on today's game. What do you see happening at M&T Bank Stadium, Anthony?
Okay, let me think. I really love coming on here and just being optimistic, but I'm gonna stick to my guns. It's 24-20. Ravens are gonna win today, unfortunately. I think Derrick Henry runs wild. I think Aaron Rodgers has kind of a tough day back there. I do expect Jaylen Warren to show up. I think Jaylen Warren's going to have a big game rushing, receiving. He's going to score. Derrick Henry's going to score. But at the end of the day, Steelers aren't going to come out victorious in Baltimore, unfortunately.
Anthony Halkias of SteelerNation.com, lead writer for SteelerNation.com. He's been with the website for a few years now. Young man, thank you. It's good to have you back on the show. We hope to see you next week.
You will. All
right, awesome. Thank you very much, Anthony Halkias.
Yeah.
All right, there he is. Good young man. I like him a lot. I like everybody that's on the show has a different perspective. That's one of the reasons why I mix it up with young and old. It's just I think it's you want to have those optimistic young minds. Sometimes we got Jerry DePaula, who is still young at heart, joining us here and wearing his Avonworth Antelopes hat. The Antelopes PIAA champs, first time in school history. Good afternoon, Mr. DePaula. Oh, we got no volume from Jerry. Let's see where the volume is. We'll find him. He'll be there in a second. That's all right. I think that's him right there. Oh, no, you're not. Nope. Figure out the audio here in a second. I will tell you while we're at break here, we are brought to you in part by North Park Lounge Richland, Hilltop Event Center. There you go, Jerry. Thank you very much. And that's okay. Also, Arch Masonry and Restoration has been a sponsor from day one. Arch looking for concrete finishers, block masons, brick masons, and labor help. 412-564-5733, archmasonryinc.com. All right, Mr. DePaula.
You'd think I know how to use this microphone by now, you know? You're right. I am an old guy.
Hey, we all are. We all are.
I wanted to say it was good to see my good friend Ed Bouchette. Ed's a great guy. The dean of NFL writers. Ed and I spent many time in that old media room down there at the stadium. It was good working with next to him.
Yeah, no, Ed. I mean, yeah, just a pro. You know what I mean? Just a pro. And again, I go back almost 30 years ago to my time on Ardmore Boulevard, over 30 years when I was producing at the time in the mid-'90s. And, it's nice to connect with guys like that because they have such a well. You have a well of knowledge. You have a 30-plus years, 40 for him, almost, maybe even longer than that, before he decided to, call it quits a few years ago. It's great to get that perspective. For our show, especially as we're so new and, trying to build an audience here. Mr. DePaula, good afternoon. How do you feel about today's game? Let's start there. Just some easy thoughts coming out the gate after the week that was in Steeler Nation.
Well, after a long day of watching football, shout out to the Antelopes and to my grandkids who helped, not freshmen on the state championship team. But the two games last night were great, too. The Big Ten, the ACC championship game, very interesting. So I had a lot of thoughts going through my head, John, and I was thinking that today's game, Steelers and Ravens, hey, the Steelers might win today, okay? But so what? If they win today, they're 7-6. This team has not shown the ability to have sustainable success. They've beaten the Colts, they've beaten the Patriots, and they've lost to a lot of other teams that aren't that good, and they have no run. They have no run defense. The quarterback has a broken bone in his wrist, and he's 42 years old. The receivers can't get open. Their best receiver, who's making millions and millions, with $30 million or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
He can't get open. He's not making the plays they need. But again, they may win today. But you know what? That's not good enough. They have to win, I think, for the last 5 to give fans and themselves the confidence they can do something in the playoffs. But if they fall short of that, I mean, 3 out of the next 5, what are they? 9 and 7? You know, what's that? My math is right.
No, 9 and 8. Yeah, 9 and 8.
Sorry, right, 9 and 8, and that's horrible. I mean, you know, they don't look like a playoff team, and much less a team that can win a game in the playoffs. But again, they may win today. You know, they may shut down Derrick Henry for a while because that's the way things are. I think I listened to Anthony before, and he was talking about he doesn't think Mike Tomlin has a clue. I think Tomlin, has a clue of what might work. But at this point in the season, December the 7th, what can you do? You can't. They went on the waiver wire. They picked up 2 guys off the scrap, 2 wide receivers off the scrap heap, and they put Roman Wilson inactive today. That's a bad sign. Here's a guy who was drafted to be your future, biggest game of the season, and he's inactive because of 2 guys who haven't done anything, for a couple of years. So I just have a bad feeling about the rest of the season. But I know what? A good feeling about today. I think they're going to lose, but I think they're going to make it competitive for a while.
Yeah, we hope that they make it competitive. I think a lot of that, to be quite honest with you, is going to have to do with 2 things: how they handle Derrick Henry and if Aaron Rodgers can throw the football. I mean, they're going to, look, their running game last week against the team that was 30th in the league against the run was tepid at best. I don't even think they reached 80 yards rushing last week. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think they hit 100. I know they didn't hit 100. They were awful last week. I don't even think they hit 80 last week. When you look at their schedule, the teams that they have lost to since the bye week, the Packers, who came in here and handled them, at the Chargers, better team than them. Green Bay, better team than them. At Chicago, better team than them. Buffalo, better team than them. So, you would have hoped that maybe one of those 4 you could have picked off, and they didn't.
Don't forget about the losing to the Bengals.
Yeah, right. The loss on the Thursday night game when they were up early and in control.
The Bengals winning the division. They're not winning the division.
I don't think they're going to go up. I think they'll be competitive today. I don't know. I don't think they'll win. I think Buffalo is. Josh Allen and James Cook are probably going to be enough to will themselves to victory by scoring a ton of points, right? They'll get enough stops. Maybe they get a turnover here or there to beat a, not a very good Cincinnati team. They're 4-8, for crying out loud. What are we actually talking about here? But I do think Aaron Rodgers, and again, I'm not playing Back to the Future here, Jerry, with Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Adam Thielen, but I got to believe that with MVS being brought onto the active roster, right? I think it's Roman Wilson's inactive today. Cedric Wilson has been a no-show pretty much the entire season for them. I think these 2 guys are going to get on the field and get one-on-one coverage and maybe, just maybe, create a little space and Rodgers get enough time to find them and extend some drives. They have to extend drives today, Jerry. The 3-and-out stuff has been a nagging spot in their offense all season long. They're still clipping around 40% of their drives at 3-and-out. That's no bueno. That's not a measure for success in the NFL. They've got to extend some drives. And I'm thinking that those 2 guys, I don't care how washed up and old they are, maybe, just maybe, today they have enough in the tank to give him some separation and time to get a ball to them that extends drives, continues to give their offense some momentum where they can stay close, right? I don't think they can win. I don't think they win today. I'll talk about that at the end of this. But I'm leaning on those 2 guys providing something that the others who have been on this roster since day one haven't given him. Thoughts on that?
That's why I think it's going to be a closer game for most of the game today. I think that with Rodgers is still Rodgers can still throw the football. He can throw the football as well as almost anybody in the league. It's just that his receivers aren't getting open. He's not getting enough time to throw. He's too skittish in the pocket. He's concerned about his wrist. He doesn't want to get hit at his age. But I think they'll run the ball a little bit today with Gainwell and Warren, and they'll hang in the game. I can see this game. You always ask for a score, John. I'm thinking 23-17 Baltimore with Baltimore, maybe 24-17, breaking a 17-17 tie with a late touchdown. That's my prediction right there.
Okay, fair enough. Go ahead, Bill.
Jerry, I wanted to make a point with you and get your take on it. So they haven't had a 20+ yard pass since week 8 against the Packers.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Isn't it? I mean, it's staggering. You read that and you're just like, wow, like what?
Yeah.
And then we've talked about the big play option and DK Metcalf all season, right? The first 7 games caught passes of 31, 80, 25, 39, and 24. Nothing longer than 19 yards in the last 5 games. I mean, last week was just terrible offensively for the Steelers. Just couldn't get anything going. What are they going to do to get an offensive spark going here, Jerry?
Well, he's supposed to be big play DK, right? And he's been small play DK, right. For most of the season. Early in the season, he was okay. He's the kind of guy that can run after the catch pretty well. But what they got to do, I think, is protect Rodgers a little bit better. Give Rodgers a chance to look around that secondary and give the receivers a chance to get open. Sometimes, if the receivers have time, they can create separation. I think DK can do that. But if Rodgers is running for his life and Broderick Jones is out for probably the rest of the season, so the offensive line is not going to be getting any better that I can see. Maybe run the ball. Run the ball well early in the game. Will open things up later. That's probably the best formula I can think of if they'll be able to run the ball against this Baltimore defense, which is pretty mediocre. And Baltimore, like the Steelers, they're a pretty mediocre team, and that's why I think it's going to be close for a while. And the Steelers could even if they win today, the schedule isn't that tough. Miami, Cleveland,
Detroit,
and then Baltimore again at home. But I just don't see them winning some of those games. They could very easily lose to a team like Miami that's playing a little bit better. You can win today, lose next week. That's a typical Tomlin thing, right?
Yeah, and they're gonna. Yeah, that game at Detroit is the one that even though it's interconference, it's still
lost to me, right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, to face a team of that nature, and it is official. Adam Thielen, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, both active. Roman Wilson, Keyshawn Williams, inactive for today's game. That came across just a little while ago. Okay, Jerry. Rough week for Mike Tomlin. We really haven't talked about it much.
You think he cares, John?
No. Publicly, no. Right? Publicly, he's the way he addressed things in the post game last week, and then Tuesday at his presser is typical of him, which is fine. Do I think he cares about it? No. But do I feel that he's feeling something he hasn't felt in a long time, in nearly 19 years now? Yes, I do. I said after the Colts game, in that post game, that was a man that looked relieved, and not in a good way, that he came out of that contest with a victory. The expression on his face said an awful lot. I didn't catch much of that after the Bills game. We had his presser after that, which has been good for us. But I think internally, he's got to be feeling something, right? The Schefter story yesterday, which I'm pretty sure you saw, the clause 27, they've got till March to make a decision on that. Do they want a lame duck essentially coming in through 26? And on top of that, heading into the draft, which is going to be here, then you got Ian Rappaport this morning saying it's a done deal. He's going to get extended. Nobody knows what they're talking about. Where do you see all of this? I think he's coming back, and I think he'll get extended no matter what happens. But I'm just kind of what your thoughts are.
I kind of feel that way too, especially if they, like we talked about, they finish 9-8 and they keep having another winning season, a non-losing season. But Dan Rooney was still alive. Dan Rooney would not want a lame duck coach in 26. He would want a guy who signed maybe for another couple years or whatever. Not a guy who looks like he's not going to be coaching in 2027. So I think that Art Rooney, the second, is a little different than his dad. And I think I love to be in the meetings that they have Monday mornings after games about what they talk about. But I think Art has enough respect for Mike Tomlin that he's not putting a more mandate on him to go out. You better win today. You better beat Baltimore, or heads are going to roll around here. I think heads will roll, but I think heads will roll the coordinators and the position coaches. I think that's probably something that's been long overdue. Although I think Arthur Smith is a smart guy, but he just isn't getting enough out of his players. And I think he's a little bit better than Matt Canada, but he has better players than Matt Canada had probably. The quarterback he has, you'd think he'd be getting the tight end involved more, getting the running backs involved more. Maybe it's just the offensive line is so bad that they can't get anything started. I think that's probably the root of the whole problem.
All right, we got Jerry DePaula on with us. We've got
Art Rooney the second. I'm sorry, Art Rooney Jr. is Dan's brother. I should know better than that. I apologize. Art Rooney the second. Sorry.
He's no second.
He is the second. Art Rooney Jr. is a great guy. I knew him real well. Wrote about him many, many times. Good man. Sorry, Art.
Never got a chance to meet him. I got a chance to interview Dan once, which was that was when Plan B got announced in '98, and I've met him one or two times before his passing, and his son, I've met him once or twice. Look, the family business is the family business, and obviously Art the second isn't Dad, but it's got to be in his blood in some capacity, right? He's got to care. I've maintained he doesn't care enough. Okay, then that's fair. Okay,
he's making decisions that people don't agree with. He's keeping his coach around for probably too long. Right. And that's part of what his dad likes, the stability. 3 coaches since 1969. That's something you don't see in sports today. How many pick any team in the NFL you want. How many teams have had way more than 3 coaches since 1969?
Yeah, everybody. Everybody.
Not just a few more. Double, quadruple the number.
Somebody did some digging, and I wish I would have paid attention to it a little bit closer to who it was. But the Steelers haven't fired a head football coach since the 40s.
Right. Yeah.
Wasn't it, Jerry? I thought it was like Jock.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like Jock Sutherland or Buddy Parker, one of those guys that they fired?
Buddy Parker was a coach, but he may have resigned. He coached for the Lions for a while too. I don't know if that was before. That might have been after the.
That was in the '60s, I think. Buddy Parker.
But I did see that stat about they haven't fired a coach since the '40s. But there's also the word firing. Has different connotations.
Right.
Did he fire?
Right.
Was he pushed? Was Bill Connor wasn't fired? Chuck Noll wasn't fired, but was he pushed?
Right. He was right. And Ed alluded to that in his time on here. He said that Dan went to him and they had to come to a decision. You're not doing enough. And so he got on with his life's work, as he used to like.
Art will come to the same decision.
Maybe
end of the season, especially if they lose 3 of the next 5 games at least.
Right.
They never lose the record.
As I've maintained, and Jay Quest is saying, why do we have so many tight ends if we don't use them? We can address that in a few minutes, sir. I've maintained that for this to really start heading towards off the rails, where we're not going to pick up your option, okay, because they just fall off a cliff here. It has to be a sub 500 season where they don't make the playoffs. They're under 500, and just things, spiral. That's the momentum that I would think Art would need to have that real conversation with Mike.
If things go bad in the month of December, I think they'll make a decision way before March the 1st.
I agree.
I think they'll say, okay, Mike, it's been nice. You've had a great career. Yeah, you're a borderline Hall of Fame coach. You won a Super Bowl for us. Been to another one, but it's time. Let's get this done in January, before free agency starts, before everything else starts. Because people were talking about what happens at the draft if Tom was still the coach and they start booing the head coach. You don't want that to happen. But I think if they fire him in January or push him out in January, whatever they do, he resigns. You get a coach in here in January, get that coach established. Then by the time you get to the draft, you have the fans feeling a little bit better about things.
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, so I was totally wrong. It was not Jock Sutherland. The last coach to be fired by the Pittsburgh Steelers was in 1941, Bert Bell.
Jeez. You were around for that, Jerry, weren't you? You're
NFL commissioner. He was an NFL commissioner for a while.
That's right.
He
That's
was.
right.
Bert Bell, yeah, that's right. He was a good friend of the chief. And, you know, I think the chief made some tough decisions there. I mean, him and Bert Bell were buddies. They helped form the league in the 30s. But he ended up having to fire him because things were going so bad. That was wartime, and things were even a darker time for the Steeler franchise than it is right now. Right now, the Steeler franchise is much better than it was back in the day.
Right.
But yeah, you're right about Bert Bell was probably the last coach to be fired. But again, I think Chuck Noll was pushed. I think that he was probably ready too. You know, I think he was ready to get on, like he said, with his life's work, and he did.
Yeah, I agree. I think he saw the writing on the wall. I think Cowher, for what it's worth, had enough, had achieved the goal that he
wanted more money, and I think they were willing to give him a lot more money. And he decided, I don't need this anymore. I can go do TV, and he's been great on TV. Everybody thought after he resigned that he would be back coaching in a couple of years. He's never even come close to being back coaching. You know, he loves it. So he lives in New York City. You know, he has his daughters close to him. He's having a great time on TV. He doesn't want the hassle anymore. But he was a great coach. Bill Cowher was a great coach who brought this team, you know, a lot of great memories, a lot of great games in a Super Bowl. Who
didn't inherit a Super Bowl caliber roster?
That's the other thing. People say that Mike Tomlin inherited Bill Cowher's players. Well, yeah, he did. But you know what? He coached them. He did. Them. Yeah, he got to give him some credit for winning that Super Bowl.
I'm not saying. I'm not saying that he didn't help lead that team to a Super Bowl. He was a big component of it, without a doubt. But trying to compare the two when they were coming in is not fair. Right. It's not fair.
One thing Mike Tomlin has not done well is pick quarterbacks. You know, Kenny Pickett. You know, I love Kenny when he was at Pitt. Him and I got along well. He had a great senior season in 2021. I really thought they do as well as they did. You know, winning 11 games. But that was a bad draft choice. Number 20 overall. Set the franchise back a couple of years. And after that, they really haven't found a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers looked like he was going to be that quarterback. Halfway through the season, it's starting to fall apart. So we'll see how the season ends. Maybe Rodgers will rally. I don't think he will, because I think that risk is still a problem.
Couple more minutes with Jerry DePaula, but go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just going to say I thought it was funny. Bill Cowher was on the Dan Patrick show this week, and they were talking about the fire Mike Tomlin chance. And he said, you know, when things were bad for me in Pittsburgh, he said a lot of times I would go late at night and go out and get gas so I wouldn't have to see the fans, you know. And he said sometimes, you know, they'd pull up to you and they weren't getting gas, but they'd roll the window down and they just start telling you everything that's bad about the team. You know, and he said I just would take it and listen to it and say, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Get out of my face. Under his breath, get out of my face. You know?
Yeah, it was funny. He said one year, it was in the off season. He said they used to go, him and his wife and kids used to go in the off season down to this vacation spot, and it was an island down in, I think it was in North Carolina. And he said one year I shaved my mustache, and he said I go down there, and he said they didn't recognize me. He says somebody come up and said, hey, you know, Bill Cowher's on this island. They say he's on this island. He said, really? He said, wow. Yeah, he said, I can't believe that. You know, he didn't shaved the mustache. He didn't recognize him. So
I haven't heard that story in years. I remember that story.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say about Cowher, he was a good, strong family man. His kids, his three daughters were always around training camp. And I remember this vividly many, many years ago. My daughter and his oldest daughter are the same age. And we took her to an indoor soccer game one time. And I walk into the facility, and I was leaving for Houston that afternoon for a game. And I hear this voice yelling, coaching the girls, yelling at the girls. And that voice sounds familiar. As I walk in, it's Bill Cowher. He wasn't coaching the team, but he was off to the side encouraging the girls. And I talked to him about it later. And, he asked how my daughter did. And he's really, I got to know Bill fairly well, not as well as some other people. But I thought he was a great guy and a great coach. And I got a lot of respect for guys, who try to incorporate family into their busy lives, and it's real tough for a coach like Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin, and Pat Narduzzi to do, but they all seem to do it.
Well, I got to say one thing. I can't give them a pass on one thing, and that was when the Penguins won the Cup in 2009. Do you remember they played the Carolina Hurricanes, and they had him ring the Hurricane because I guess he was living down there. They had him ringing the Hurricane.
He went to NC State.
Siren. Yeah. I was like, man,
that's how those roots run deep. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I know.
All right, last couple minutes with Jerry DiPaola before we let him go. TJ Watt, by far the biggest disappointment on this
He's
defense.
Still on the team, right? He's still
They have not traded him, and he has not retired. So yes, and he is active. He is active for today. How much do you blame TJ for TJ's problems?
Well, I think Ed made the point. These players have to be accountable. He's been a great player throughout his career, and if he's not getting the job done now, who else are you going to blame? You can't blame his coaches. He's a pass rusher. He should be able to beat those blocks, those chips, and those double teams if they come. And he hasn't been able to do it. I think he's been an okay player. He hasn't been a bad player, but he's not a splash. He's not making the splash plays that Tomlin talks about all the time. And I think for a team like the Steelers, they have so many other problems elsewhere. They need their stars to step up. Guys like Watt, guys like Hayward, guys like Warren, guys like Rodgers, DK Metcalf. Those guys aren't stepping up and making the big plays they need. And if you're going to beat Lamar Jackson today, who's maybe a little banged up himself, you got to get him on the ground a couple of times. And who better to get him on the ground than TJ Watt, who's one of the best pass rushers over the last 10 years in the NFL. But he hasn't done it yet. I mean, what's he have, 6 sacks already? Is that what it is, John? In 12 games? One every other game? That's not enough. You should have 12 by now, at least one per game. A game-changing play. He's made a couple game-changing plays, but not enough. That's why they're 6-6, and headed maybe towards 6-7 today. But Watt has to be accountable for the way he's played this year. You can't blame anybody else but TJ Watt. That's
$6.57 million per sack, sir.
Not a bad deal if you can get it.
Not a bad deal indeed.
How much do I get per word on this show?
A lot less. Let's just say that. But you're worth every penny, Jerry.
John, it's my pleasure to be on with you and Bill. You guys are the greatest.
By the way, secretly, your wife is negotiating for a raise for you already. I'll just let you know that.
I haven't seen a dime of it. She has the Venmo locked up. And everything. Did John send the $50 today every Friday? Oh yeah, it's there. Oh, okay. Well, what'd you do with it? Oh well, I did this, I did that.
It's a little 6 a.m. surprise to everybody. I try to get it out early to people. All right, everybody that knows me says, "Oh, you must be making a lot of money. You got sponsors." I'm like, no, I'm not making anything. I'm paying it all out because I need good talent. Paying for talent, good talent, is important to me.
I do it for free, but maybe I shouldn't tell you that.
Yeah, no. Listen, nobody works for free in our line of work, right? At least, that's what I was taught a long time ago. All right, before I let you go, you have anything else for Jerry? Prediction on today's game, sir.
I think I said a bit ago, 24-17. It'll be 17-17 in the last minute of the game. Here come the Ravens, trying to win the game, maybe set up for a field goal. All of a sudden, Lamar Jackson drops back to pass, maybe from the 24-yard line. Watt looks like he's going to sack him, misses. All of a sudden, Jackson gets out of the pocket, runs for a touchdown, 24-17, game over.
Jerry DiPaola, the best. He will be joining us in our post-game show. Jerry, I would think we'll probably be done around 5 o'clock today, just so you know. That's
Sounds
what
good.
I think.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward. I'm gunning for him.
I absolutely love it. Thanks, Jerry. You're the best.
Jerry. Okay, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Enjoy the game.
All right. Jerry DiPaola, longtime writer at the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. He's covered basically everything you can cover in sports here in this city over nearly a 40-year career. Bill's breakdown, and then we will wrap this puppy up. Bill, your thoughts on today's game?
Well, I can't tell you that I'm not worried about this game because I am. Just judging on what the last two games have been facing this Ravens team. Henry 162 yards and 24 carries, and then in the playoff win, 186 on 26 carries. So, you've got a banged up Lamar Jackson, hampered by, a plethora of injuries, hamstring, ankle, toe, knee, So are you going to have to maybe worry less about him running? Maybe. I do agree with Jerry, get TJ Watt needs to take advantage of a hampered Lamar Jackson, sack him, put him on the ground. I don't know. As I said before, they held the rushing leader Jonathan Taylor to 45 yards.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago,
Right.
number 2 rushing team in the league, the Bears, you hold them to 99 total rushing yards. So, it can be done. They can, but Derrick Henry's, I don't know, he's just kind of a different animal, and the last couple games have not been good. But I don't know. I still could see them winning this game. Strangest, this is like a Tomlin-esque win.
Well, yeah, his back's against the wall. Nobody's predicting them to win, right? This is where he's at his best, quite frankly. I don't disagree with that.
Well, who said it that they could see them winning this week and losing to Miami next week? I forget who we had that said that, but that's so true.
This has got 2017 written all over it.
Yeah.
I think it does. Mm-hmm. It's either a 3-touchdown blowout by Baltimore or it's 20-17. Yeah. I'm leaning towards 2017. I think Baltimore's going to win this game, which means the Steelers are going to win. I've been horrible. I haven't even gone back and looked. I just know. Like the last 9 weeks, I'm wrong every single week. Take that information and do what you want with it as we are about to wrap up the show. Again, thanks to the North Park Lounge, Richland, and Hilltop Event Center. They have been fantastic to us all season long. We are here live every single Steelers game, 4 hours prior to kick and immediately following. Roya Topics 2025 on YouTube. Something tells me the defense is going to have a strong showing, so we talk about how if they play like this, they can actually be dominant. Then next week, it's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster. Ronnie Hunter, Boswell kick for the win. Possibly. We haven't heard from Chris Boswell in a while, haven't we?
Yeah, no.
He's been there. And that's because the offense can't put drives together. Yeah. They can't put drives together.
Yeah.
Ronnie Hunter.
They're not getting in field goal range.
Right, because they go 3 and out 4 out of 10 drives.
Yeah.
And you figure on average in the average NFL game, you're going to get about 12 drives, right? 10 to 12 drives per game, depending on the tempo and, et cetera, et cetera. When 4 of your 10 or 5 of your 12 are 3 and outs, and then you got a couple turnovers, and then maybe you have a 3 and out with a field goal. Now all of a sudden you're at 8 of 12 drives with just maybe say 3 points. Very hard to sustain anything in terms of success when you're talking about that. I don't know how much the new receivers are going to help. I want to believe one of the two will make a good play to extend a drive, possibly get them in a position for a score. I don't know how much better things are with Aaron Rodgers and his injury. It takes one good hit on that left hand to render him useless for the remainder of the game. We saw it last week. He got hit enough against Buffalo where they took him out for a series, and then Mason comes in and promptly throws a pick, which prompted Mason to be taken back out and Aaron to be rushed back out to no avail. They didn't score any points in the second half of that game.
He got cut on the bridge of his nose, too.
And he looked like a pugilist who had gone 15 rounds. He looked, with Larry Holmes back in the early 80s, he looked terrible. Say what you want about his post-game spiel. I don't really care about that. Aaron Rodgers has reserved the right to say what he wants when it comes to what happens in a game. And accountability, we have a fundamental lack of accountability in society in general. I don't have a problem with the head coach or the quarterback saying something publicly. Hold players accountable.
Well,
If DK Metcalf isn't doing something right, he needs to be told. And maybe a little public shaming will get more production out of a guy like that. You can talk about today's modern athlete and where they're at mentally, and that's all well and good. But I have no problem with that. I have no problem with what athletes say in general, unless it's something that's so egregious. I would say otherwise, they're wrong. But athletes reserve the right to say whatever they want to the press.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with what he said in that post-game presser, especially if guys aren't showing up for meetings, if they're not paying attention, if they're coming in late, they need to be held accountable.
And he did say we need to be held accountable, including me. He said including me. So.
Right. Yeah, and again, taking responsibility is, again, important as well. All right, quick prediction, and then we will wrap up. I'm going to tell you right now that the Miami Hurricanes have made the college football playoff. I want to see all of this. I'm excited about. I still like college football, even though it's been destroyed completely. Miami has made the college football playoff. I was waiting for that to happen. All right, quick prediction. I say 20-17 Ravens. Steelers lose today. I want to thank all of our guests for coming on our show today. We're going to wrap up a little bit early so that you can get prepared, i.e. tuned up, for the 1 o'clock kickoff. Steelers and Ravens, M&T Bank Stadium. As soon as the game is over, folks, come back, hang out. John Fedko, Jerry DePaula, lively. All right, post-game is always lively between those two. We'll have Tomlin's post-game presser. Bill will be working hard on that. Want to thank the folks here at the North Park Lounge Richland and the Hilltop Event Center. Want to thank the fine folks at Arch Masonry and Restoration for all their support. Of course, if you're a brick mason, block mason, concrete finisher, or construction laborer who is not working right now, Arch is looking for you. 412-564-5733, archmasonryinc.com to get back to work in the building trades. Again, post-game presser. We will have live reaction right here on X, Facebook, and YouTube as soon as the game is over. We will see you in a few hours. This has been Steel City Sunday Preview here on X, Facebook, and YouTube. John Phillips saying good afternoon and let's go Steelers.